Part 20. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 198. Chapter 193 Elite Hunter. Luo Guang and his companions came to the first cab of the shower, which was the control room of the shower. It sealed. Looking at the observation window covered with steel plates, Ji Xiu sighed. Sure enough, they would not be allowed to enter easily. To break this window, Luo Guang could just use his fists, but the problem was that there were outsiders present, so Luo Guang looked at the window and did not make any moves. What should I do? Tai Long was at a loss for a moment and looked at Ji Xiu. After all, Ji Xiu was the son of a big boss in the black market and had his own ideas, so he did not look at Luo Guang to let Luo Guang make a decision for him, but thought about it alone. Google searched "can." Jill quickly thought of the answer and said, since this control room was sealed by Morpheus and this problem cannot be solved, then we will solve Morpheus. Ji Xiu thought this was a good idea and nodded quickly, but Tai Long did not think so. In his opinion, Morpheus is like a general in ancient times, who will be protected by the most stringent defense, in other words, the most dangerous place. It is his responsibility to protect Jixiu. So Tyrone objected, no, it's too dangerous. Morpheus must be heavily protected. But Tyrone, look, the tyrant was beaten to death by you so easily. Jixiu became interested. The hero who stopped the spread of the biochemical crisis, this title seems good, and it can also help his family business to further develop and grow. But if there are other biochemical weapons besides the biochemical weapon called Tyrant, I may not be able to protect you. Aren't there still the Sheriff and Black Cat? Jixiu pointed at Luo Guang and the others. Luo Guang and Jill's shooting skills are indeed very strong, but Tyrone feels that in terms of controlling the battlefield situation, he is still stronger in this aspect and more suitable to survive in this environment. In the current situation of the shower, it should be hidden. He believed that the Lighthouse Nation and the mysterious Eastern Nation would not stand idly by and watch what Morpheus did, so as long as they waited for the arrival of the two countries, they would be rescued. In order to convince Ji Xiu, Taylor told Ji Xiu his idea. In fact, this was more to convince Luo Guang and Jill. Although he didn't know why his young master trusted each other so much, Tyrone knew that as long as Luo Guang and Jill didn't go on an exploration, Ji Xiu would definitely put away his adventurous spirit. Jill naturally thought of this situation, but as an anti-biochemical fighter, how could she sit and wait for death in the face of a biochemical crisis and put her life in the hands of others, so she would not find a safe place to hide and wait for others to rescue her? Haha. Luo Guang laughed and said, Eagle, isn't Bruce the rescuer sent by the Lighthouse Nation? As for the Eastern Nation, isn't there Fang Ling? It's fair to send one person on each side. But they were lurking on the ship before Morpheus sent out the threat, right? Tyrone meant that he thought there would be a support force later. Seeing that Luo Guang and Jill were unmoved, Tyrone was a little anxious and said, why do you two have to risk your lives with those biological weapons? There are obviously more reliable methods, why do you have to take risks? You. Tyrone, stop it. Jixiu called out Eagle's real name. Tyrone's words were stuck in his throat. When Jixiu was with him, he either called him teacher or old man. Jixiu apologized to Luo Guang and the others and said, I understand your good intentions, old man, you have the responsibility as a bodyguard, but I can't be under your protection all my life. I know, but as I step down, someone will take over my position to protect you. Tyrone seemed to have aged a few years in an instant. Although he is still very strong now, he is not as good as before. Ji Xiu shook his head and said, my grandfather and my father have one thing in common, excellent business acumen and decisive decision-making ability, but they are not good at fighting. But they don't need fighting, and you see, I have fighting skills, but I can only be inferior to others. Tai Long was still trying to persuade Ji Xiu, who was inspired by something and began to pursue fighting. Luo Guang interrupted the topic and said, that's because your fighting skills are not strong enough. Okay, Lao Ying is also kind-hearted. Although I don't know why you want to pursue fighting skills as a prince, you are not qualified to participate in such things with your current fighting power. Ji Xiu also started to learn special fighting skills after the Amazon auction incident. He stayed in the hospital for a short time in between, so his fighting training was only 2 months at most. I understand. A trace of sadness flashed in Ji Xiu's eyes, sadness for his own weakness. Tyrone, you mentioned the issue of the two countries' support forces, but that is only the most ideal outcome. I just want to ask, what if there are no support forces? Luo Guan continued to go deeper, put forward a hypothesis, and said, what if the two countries directly use the simplest method to bury the shower and Morpheus in the Atlantic Ocean? Oh, as for the problem of locating the ship, the two agents can carry satellite positioning devices. Because of his bodyguard duties, Taylor will pay more attention to Jixiu's safety, which leads to his thinking only focusing on protecting Jixiu's safety, which has become very narrow. In the end, Taylor could only give up his plan in silence. Since we have reached a consensus, cheer up. There is no time to adjust your mentality, Luo Guan kindly reminded. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Jixiu and Tyrone nodded, restored the previous formation, and left the cab. Bruce on the other side was rearmed at this time, holding a Remington 870 shotgun as his weapon. Although they followed Fang Ling out of another door in the kitchen, the fork in the road made them go in different directions, and the road Bruce chose was not very good, which happened to be the passage connecting the warehouse full of zombies. Bruce soon saw the zombies. The door of the warehouse was opened by Murphy's remote control. Because of the sound of the battle between Bruce and Fang Ling and the cook zombies, the zombies were moving slowly towards Bruce. These zombies are not actually the main carriers used by Murphy's to spread the T-virus. In fact, these zombies are actors specially prepared by Murphy's to create the tragic situation of the shower. In the event of a failed gas attack, these zombies will also become Morpheus's backup and become one of the ways to spread the T-virus. As for the chefs cooking with those zombies, it was actually a good thing done secretly by the chef's patented arbitrary decision. The other mercenaries did not patrol there much, not because they knew that the chef had a bit of a strange habit, but because there were a large number of zombies there and the chef was guarding it. In fact, as the chef was the only one cooking on the ship, the zombie meat that Tyrone saw was actually eaten by the mercenaries. The chef stewed the shredded meat until it was rotten, and added a thick spicy curry sauce, and served it to the mercenaries' table. As long as there are no bones, the mercenaries who are not picky about food will not easily agree to the meat. The mercenaries themselves grew up in the big wind and waves, and their physical fitness is very good, so there were not many symptoms in the early stage. As for why the chef did not serve the zombie meat to the buyers' tables, the reason is very simple, that is, it is not up to standard. The appearance of the zombie meat is rotten, and the internal situation is okay, but it is definitely not hidden when it is served to the upper-class table. As for making curry for buyers like mercenaries, the chef felt that it was a bit cheap. So before the spread of the biochemical gas, the shower was calm, without any riots or buyers getting sick to arouse any suspicion. Bruce could naturally choose another way at this time, but he did not think of escaping when facing these difficulties. He picked up the shotgun in his hand and began to clean up the zombies coming out of the corridor. Because of the structure of the ship, Fang Ling heard the sound of the shotgun, but because the sound was constantly echoing, Fang Ling could not confirm the location of the shotgun. Fang Ling, who then stopped to observe the situation, decided to move forward and perform his mission after hearing the continuous sound of the shotgun. He walked to a relatively large room, which looked like a lounge for the crew living on the ground floor. And hanging on the wall inside were two elite hunters waiting for the prey to appear. These two elite hunters were adjusted by Morpheus himself, and used as props to slap Umbrella in the face. Unfortunately, the members of the research division that developed the hunters have been scattered and rebelled, and he has lost the target to slap. As for directly slapping Umbrella, Morpheus thinks that Umbrella will not care about these things at all in its current situation where it is difficult to protect itself. Compared with ordinary Hunter Alpha, the limbs of elite hunters are more slender and powerful, while the body part is unexpectedly slender. The claws on the hands are not straight or slightly curved, but curved like a sickle. The lights in the lounge are a bit dim. This is a death trap specially prepared by Morpheus. After all, Fang Ling is the most outstanding agent in her organization. When the sound came from the ceiling and the left wall, she immediately moved forward to dodge in a crawling posture. The palm is just used as a buffer. After rolling, Fang Ling immediately ran to the sofa beside her, and the action of her hands did not stop. A flash bomb is to deal with those enemies with excellent vision in the dark environment. This flash bomb has no sonic boom, so Fang Ling hiding behind the sofa is enough for her to protect herself from the strong light of the flash bomb. But for the elite hunters who have never seen flash bombs, the strong light directly hits their faces, making them blind and jump to other places in pain. Fang Ling took the opportunity to use the sofa as a gun rack and shot at the irregularly moving elite hunters. But Morpheus's perfectionism is fully reflected in the elite hunters, who have no obvious shortcomings in terms of attack power, defense power, and mobility. The skin of the elite hunters certainly cannot block the bullets of the AX-74U short assault rifle, but the muscle fibers in the body can block the attack of a certain number of bullets. Fang Ling needs to separate the elite hunters moving to the left and right sides to kill and shoot, and soon empties the magazine, but the elite hunters do not die. Instead, the two elite hunters unknowingly form a corner to Fang Ling. Meow, because of what happened last night, plus the fact that my colleague asked my boss to pressure me to work overtime today, I didn't respond, but I'm in a very bad mood now, and I have to talk to my boss on Monday. I really can't write a single word. I've been feeling a bit down lately, sorry. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 199. Chapter 194, About to Meet. Before, Fang Ling was also attacked from both sides, so she did not panic. She planned to repeat the same trick, maybe she could make the two elite hunters attacking her collide directly. Then she could take advantage of this brief opportunity to attack the heads of the elite hunters who were briefly stopped. But the two elite hunters were not ordinary beasts. They had a certain IQ and were given the name of Elite by Morpheus. The situation was urgent and happened very quickly. Fang Ling did not notice that the running speeds of the elite hunters on both sides were not consistent. This was not due to individual differences. The slower elite hunter was planning to wait for Fang Ling to make an evasive move before launching an attack. Fang Ling ran forward and avoided the attack of the first elite hunter. When she was about to turn back to confirm the situation, she found that the second elite hunter turned a corner slightly and rushed towards her at an accelerated speed. Her running speed was definitely not as fast as the other party. Facing the dangerous situation, Fang Ling's adrenaline surged. At this moment, no matter how many ideas and countermeasures she had in her mind, it was useless. She could only rely on her own uninterrupted training in the past and the experience accumulated from years of fighting. Her body reacted instinctively. In a very awkward way, when she turned back while running forward, Fang Ling tripped over her right foot with her left foot, and used gravity to fall backwards. The elite hunter had already pulled the distance into the attack range, and immediately exerted force on his hind legs, temporarily breaking free from the constraints of gravity, flying in the air, raising his right arm high, and swinging down the sickle of the god of death. But Fang Ling was obviously favored by the god of fate. The sickle-like claws of the elite hunter passed by Fang Ling's eyes at a distance of more than a centimeter. Watching the elite hunter fly past her, Fang Ling had no time to feel fortunate. The elite hunter who attacked first had quickly adjusted his posture and attacked again. "Don't get up," Bruce's voice appeared at another door in the lounge. Bruce didn't need to say that Fang Ling, who was attacked continuously by the elite hunters, had no time to get up and adjust her posture, so Fang Ling didn't have many choices. The empty magazine of the weapon in her hand was unloaded, and the new magazine was just in her hand, so Fang Ling couldn't fight to kill the elite hunter before the elite hunter attacked her. Fang Ling, who didn't believe in Bruce's shooting skills, was still lying on the ground, so she chose to use her waist to roll to the side. Seeing this, Bruce was more confident to shoot, without worrying that the shotgun shot from his weapon would accidentally hurt Fang Ling. Bruce was very proficient in the Remington 870 shotgun. The pump-action shotgun fired at the speed of a semi-automatic shotgun, quickly suppressing the two elite hunters. The elite hunter that was not attacked by the shotgun quickly left its original position and survived to continue hunting, so this elite hunter did not continue to attack Fang Ling, but jumped up and climbed on the wall, preparing to launch a surprise attack on Bruce from another direction. The elite hunter that Bruce suppressed first was not so lucky. Fang Ling changed the magazine of the weapon in her hand, loaded the bullet, roared, and shot into the head of the elite hunter. With a click, the last shotgun shell in Bruce's shotgun flew out from the ejection port, and the shotgun was completely empty. This shotgun was not equipped with a device to quickly feed an emergency shotgun shell from the ejection port, nor was there a spare bullet slot installed on the barrel, so it took Bruce at least more than 1 second or even more than 2 seconds to reload. And the elite hunter who escaped the disaster had already attacked Bruce. So Bruce's hands holding the shotgun loosened without hesitation, and then directly reached for the pistol at his waist, while his legs were ready to dodge. Da-da-da-da-da. A series of bullets attacked the elite hunter from the side, causing the opponent to lose balance in the air. Bruce jumped up, then half-crouched and raised his gun, and made a round of finishing blows to the elite hunter who fell heavily to the ground. After the gunshot, Bruce stared at the elite hunter who fell to the ground, but the action of changing the magazine in his hand was not vague at all, and he quickly replaced the new bullets. Next, Bruce did not talk to Fang Ling immediately, but took off the empty pistol magazine and put it back on his belt. At the same time, he touched the position of the empty magazine on the belt with his hand to confirm that he only had 2 full pistol spare magazines at this time. Fang Ling changed another full magazine and looked at Bruce. Bruce took the shotgun back from the elite hunter who fell to the ground, and then put the pistol back into the holster with one hand. Bruce looked back at Fang Ling, noticing that she was staring at him, and said quickly, "We are all here to stop Morpheus, we are companions." This time, Bruce spoke very smoothly without being interrupted. It seems that Bruce's heroic rescue of the beauty has worked. At this time, Bruce's shotgun had no bullets, so Fang Ling did not point the gun at Bruce, nor did she interrupt him. After Bruce finished speaking, Fang Ling replied coldly, "Agents have no companions. But we can still work together to deal with Morpheus, right? Not necessarily companions. Or people who use each other." Bruce changed his words and continued to persuade. Luckily, Bruce arrived in time this time, otherwise Fang Ling might have been injured or even killed in the cooperation of the 2 elite hunters. This has nothing to do with being well trained. Facing multiple swift enemies is different from facing bulky, slow-moving T-virus zombies. Fang Ling fell silent when she heard Bruce's words. She had been an orphan not long after she was born, and she had always been alone. When she grew up and became an intelligence agent, she had never had the experience of cooperating with other people. Fang Ling, who has always relied only on herself, has become famous within the organization over time because of her unquestionable loyalty. She is not necessarily the strongest, but she is definitely the best agent in the organization. Seeing that Fang Ling's guard seemed to be a little loose, Bruce walked towards her, but this action seemed to make Fang Ling raise her guard again, as if Bruce was not approaching him on the physical level, but trying to break into his spiritual fortress. Aiming at Bruce with the weapon in her hand, Fang Ling said, "I don't want to be taken advantage of, but the mission is still the most important. Before we deal with Morpheus, We can act together. You go first. Bruce breathed a sigh of relief and took the lead to continue walking towards the control room where Morpheus was, while loading the shotgun in his hand. Luo Guang and the others on the other side seemed to be speeding up compared to the way to the cab. Because when they left the cab, the sharp-eyed Luo Guang discovered that a small island appeared not far away. If the ship's sailing direction did not change, Luo Guang could have predicted that the ship would hit the cliff of the island and explode. Thing. It is relatively easy for Luo Guang to escape from the sinking ship with Jill on his back, but it may be more troublesome for Jishiu, who needs to rush to the lifeboat behind the ship. Jishiu is of great use, but not in a place like this. Therefore, the plan was temporarily changed. Jishiu and Tai Lung were on standby near the lifeboat, responding to Luo Guang and Gil, ready to lower the lifeboat and escape at any time. Luo Guang and Gil took this opportunity to find Morpheus, or thought of other ways to break through the cab. Knowing that he could not question the situation, Jishiu did not say anything about going together. He just said jokingly, "Separate operations are a fatal factor in horror movies. Is it better for us to stay together?" When Luo Guang heard this, he smiled and replied, "It's okay, we are a science fiction film." Alien is also a science fiction film, but it seems like nothing good will happen if we split up. It doesn't work anyway, so hurry up and act. Luo Guang directly said that he wanted to act rogue and urged. Watching Jishiu and the others go down, Gil said, "Where is that guy Morpheus? What do you think?" Luo Guang smiled and said, "I don't have any ideas. We have all seen the structural diagram of the shower when it left the factory, but judging from the experience of these days, this ship must have been greatly modified. Except for the power room and other places, there will be no changes in other places. There are more or less changes." Gil nodded. This ship was just like the foreign hotels he had experienced. It had many inexplicable mechanisms. However, Luo Guang was able to directly break through the mechanisms that locked the door. But now that Jishiu and the others are not here, Luo Guang also plans to use violent means to solve the problem, saying, "Shall I try to break the glass?" The material of the glass cannot be determined, so the system does not make any prompts. Gil knew that Luo Guang's physical fitness had changed after experiencing the Raccoon City incident, so he nodded and agreed to Luo Guang's suggestion. Seeing Gil's nod, Luo Guang did not start immediately. Instead, he waited for Jishiu and the others to go further away, otherwise the sound of smashing glass and removing steel plates would be too loud. Feeling that it was almost done, at Jill's urging, Luo Guang stood up, gathered his strength, and punched out. It turned out that the hardness of the glass was much lower than Luo Guang imagined. No wonder Morpheus lowered the steel plate behind the glass. As for the steel plate at the back, it was never thicker than the cab door, so Luo Guang, wearing hardened armor gloves, easily smashed open the steel plate and opened a hole that could allow two people to pass through. The two walked in. There were no lights on, but a large number of electronic devices were flashing lights. After Luo Guang came to this world, he learned how to drive a ship, and he quickly found the location of the console. The style of this console was not much different from the one Luo Guang used when he was studying. After a little research, Luo Guang knew how to do it. Manipulated. As for Gil, he also has relevant knowledge and is checking the navigation instrument to confirm his position. The two of them divided their labors and cooperated, each quickly collecting all kinds of information in the cruise ship's cab, such as navigation charts, voyage diaries, and anything else that might be useful. "It's locked," Luo Guang said while entering the location information on the note that Jill handed him and the direction he was heading into his mobile phone and sending it to Chris and the others. The piece of paper was pulled by Jill from a notepad or memo in the cab, and the pencil was also placed beside the notebook. "It's not surprising, but it means one thing. It's very likely that there is another control room that can control this ship," Gil replied, not seeming surprised by this. After Luo Guang sent the message, he looked at the coordinates given by Gil, recalled the coordinates of the Atlantic Institute, and said, Morpheus is going to the Atlantic Institute. We are very close there. I will contact the GIMZ unit. Gil, who knew Luo Guang's arrangement, nodded, then picked up his weapon and stood guard for Luo Guang. Sitting on the chair welded to the floor, Luo Guang simply told Hank his situation. Hank was on a cargo ship at this time, thinking that his boss was about to contact him, so he had been paying attention to the communicator recently. After receiving Luo Guang's message, Hank immediately called Lone Wolf to confirm the distance between the coordinates provided by the boss and himself. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content later. Lone Wolf, who came with the nautical chart, compared it and got the answer that the two sides were exactly opposite, with the Atlantic Research Institute in the middle. Because he didn't know whether there was any radar or other reconnaissance equipment on the Atlantic Research Institute, Luo Guang didn't ask Hank to send a speedboat to pick him up. As for Hank's proposal to sail to another location to pick him up, Luo Guang rejected his proposal. Because the sea area where Hank was located was the closest to the beachhead they selected that was most suitable for landing, Luo Guang didn't want to affect their battle plan because of his own reasons. So Luo Guang finally said that they could just meet up on the island when the time came. As Luo Guang said, since his boss has come to the vicinity of the sea area, it indicates that the battle is about to start, so Hank told Lone Wolf, notify others and get ready to start work. Hearing Hank's words, Lone Wolf's tone became a little happier and said, great, everyone is a little bored after being on the ship for so long, and they have been shouting that they want to kill the research institute. Hank understands their feelings. Although the boss has purchased a lot of entertainment and fitness equipment for them, it is still a little lacking for mercenaries, especially after knowing the next mission. Wait, Hank stopped Lone Wolf, who was about to leave, and said, when you notify them later, let them be alert and don't rush out to fight all at once. Understood. Is there anything else to do? Lone Wolf nodded. Hank replied, we will keep a closer eye on Collis at that time. But didn't the boss say that you should trust people when you employ them, and don't employ people if you don't trust them? Lone Wolf was a little surprised. Hank naturally knew the sentence, and Luo Guang also said this to him, saying, I am worried that the arrogant guy will not listen to the command and cause unexpected situations in the mission, otherwise I will not arrange his team near our mission. Collis's betrayal will only teach his boss a lesson and tell him what it means to be a man beyond people and heaven beyond heaven. Hank just remembered what Luo Guang said to him during the rescue mission on Xena Island before. Hank's mission always has unexpected situations. If it weren't for them fighting together, Hank would not want to pay attention to Collis, who offended most of the troops. Got it? Lone Wolf understood and put it aside. He knew that Hank was not talking about the death squad, but Hank and him. Nothing else for the time being. Get ready for battle, Hank said, and stood up with the communicator. He also had to prepare his own weapons and equipment. Meow, go home every day and fall asleep first. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 200. Chapter 195. We will take over next. After Luo Guang and Gil completed their search and inspection in the shower's cab, they began to head to the lower deck. Jill saw a key piece of information in the voyage diary, which was that the ship's second control room was below the deck, near the stern of the ship. In fact, all the permissions of this second control room are higher than those of the cruise ship's driver's cab. The reason is also very simple. The people who control the ship in the bridge are just captains and crew members employed by Umbrella, but the people in the second control room are basically Umbrella's senior members. After Morpheus captured the shower, the crew was replaced by mercenaries, and he sat in the chair once occupied by Oswell Edward Spencer, one of the founders of Umbrella. When Luo Guang and the others were marching down in a hurry, Bruce and Fang Ling had just dealt with the two elite hunters. Because Bruce and the others didn't know the situation outside, they were not as fast as Luo Guang and the others, but they still moved forward cautiously, for fear that Morpheus would continue to scare them. After Bruce, who was at the front, used his dagger to kill a zombie blocking the way, a burst of applause suddenly sounded in the corridor. Bruce and Fang Ling immediately stood against the wall and raised their weapons. Bruce moved forward and Fang Ling stood back to guard. "It's a radio." Bruce noticed a speaker-like device hanging above the corridor not far away, and said directly without looking back. This announcer has no radio function, so Bruce doesn't worry about what they say being heard by the enemy. "I only heard a neutral voice coming from the announcer and started talking to myself. You two, it seems that you are the response given to me by the Lighthouse Country and the Eastern Country. No, you are the people who appeared on the shower before I started threatening the two countries, which means that you have premeditated it." Morpheus looked at the time displayed on the computer when Fang Ling applied for the job as a waiter on the shower, and overturned his previous speculation. However, a new question arose in his mind at this time, that is, what was the original purpose of the two people under surveillance? Bruce and Fang Ling naturally recognized that the person speaking was the neither male nor female Morpheus. Because bullets are limited, and because the trajectory of the damaged camera can be used to know their location, neither Fang Ling nor Bruce destroyed the surveillance cameras they encountered along the way. As for Luo Guang, although he is not particularly rich in bullets, it is because of Luo Guang's own reasons that he keeps destroying the cameras along the way. Of course, he does not just use bullets to destroy those cameras. I have to say that I am really surprised that you guys were able to defeat that elite hunter. But unfortunately, you are not perfect or beautiful enough. There is no place for you in the new world. For Morpheus, he values the two elite predators more than Umbrella's proud biological and chemical weapons tyrants. The biochemical weapon he named Tyrant 091 was an experimental tyrant, which was cultivated from the T-103 tyrant fused with the T/G fusion virus. But Tyrant 091 did not obtain the ability to generate and control bioelectricity as he wished, so Tyrant 091 was directly classified as a failed biochemical weapon by him. Therefore, the importance of Tyrant 091 is not as important as the two hunters he has carefully adjusted. However, based on the principle of waste utilization, he did not directly destroy the failed products. After all, he currently lacked force, so through modification, he installed a mission receiver to be able to execute the instructions given by Morpheus. After Tyrant 091 was sent out by Morpheus to annihilate Luo Guang and the others, he turned his attention back to the two elite hunters. When he came back to his senses and remembered to check the situation of Tyrant 091, Morpheus found that all the surveillance there had been damaged. At the same time, Tyrant 091 did not appear in the intact and usable surveillance range after receiving his order. In this regard, Morpheus only felt that this tyrant was indeed a failure and could not even complete a simple task. Bruce and Fang Ling heard Morpheus' words and did not answer. They didn't know what the meaning of Morpheus's sudden appearance was to him. "But you can't stop my plan. The world will tremble under my feet, and I will build a new world." After saying that, Morpheus said nothing again, and Bruce and Fang Ling did not act immediately and waited for a while. Is he just talking nonsense? After Bruce himself said some nonsense, he turned back to Fang Ling and said, "But does this mean that after the crisis broke out on the ship, that guy was still on the ship?" "I don't know. I won't know until we get to the control room." Fang Ling was very cautious in speaking and would not make any judgments easily. "But now I hear that Morpheus has been paying attention to his situation. It seems that Morpheus has been monitoring the situation on the ship. However, there is another possibility that Morpheus is not actually on the ship, but is controlling the ship remotely from the Institute. No matter what, we still have to search here. Fang Ling felt that she had to personally confirm whether Morpheus was here to be sure. Bruce, who was walking in front, nodded, held the weapon in his hand tightly, and continued to move forward. With the two elite hunters killed, Morpheus sent no more powerful characters to stop Bruce and Fang Ling. The only obstacle is the zombies released by Morpheus in the ground floor room. Those ordinary zombies are not a problem to Bruce and Fang Ling. In order to save bullets, Bruce sometimes directly uses a dagger to kill zombies blocking the way. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. The two finally came to the door of the control room, and the door of the control room was so open, as if its owner had already prepared to welcome visitors. To prevent fraud, Fang Ling asked Bruce to explore the way first. Bruce smiled bitterly, raised his gun and walked in. It was said to be a control room, but Bruce felt it was more like an office. On the wall facing the door is a huge screen with frames showing surveillance videos from every corner of the shower. Just because of Luo Guang, most of the frames are filled with snowflakes. Bruce glanced through it quickly and found Luo Guang's figure, holding a water pipe and smashing the surveillance cameras he saw one by one. In front of the screen is a huge solid wood desk, engraved with colorful and eye-catching patterns. If anyone is knowledgeable, he should be able to tell that the story engraved on it is the story of creation. There is a plush office sofa between the screen and the desk, with his back to Bruce, who seems to be watching what is being monitored on the screen. "You are finally here," Morpheus's voice sounded from the office sofa in front of Bruce. Bruce saw the patch of white hair, slightly exposed outside the sofa. Fang Ling had not seen Morpheus in person since she sneaked into the shower as a waiter. The scenes played in the lobby were suspected of being pre-recorded videos, so she was worried that Morpheus was not on the ship. Seeing Morpheus sitting with his back to her, Fang Ling finally breathed a sigh of relief and walked into the control room. Now she should worry about Bruce taking some information alone or hindering her from performing her mission. The most important thing is that her task list also includes the task of solving Morpheus, so Morpheus must be solved by herself. Because of Morpheus' threat, Bruce naturally received the task from his superiors to kill Morpheus, but the Lighthouse Country also added a special sentence: if circumstances permit, bring Morpheus back to the Lighthouse Country for trial. Now, Bruce and Morpheus are in a room with only one entrance and exit. Bruce feels that he is facing a scientific researcher and has a guaranteed chance of capturing Morpheus, so he does not choose to shoot and kill him directly. Put on the pistol and slowly approach Morpheus from the side. As soon as Bruce got out of the way of the beam, Fang Ling immediately raised her gun and started shooting at the office sofa. Bruce felt a chill on his back and shuddered. He didn't dare to move at all. The reason was simple. He was worried that Fang Ling would misunderstand his actions and shoot the bullet at him. Of course, with Fang Ling's marksmanship, if he were to attack him, he would have been shot to death in the first shot, and there would be no need to shoot. That's why Bruce immediately restrained his body's evasive movements and stood still. For Fang Ling, the mission is the most important thing, so she didn't consider Bruce's situation at all, whether he would accidentally injure the opponent, etc. She waited for Bruce to drive to one side just to prevent Bruce from becoming Morpheus's human shield. That's all. "Hey, be careful," the gunshots stopped, and Bruce, who passed by the ghost gate, felt relieved and then started to speak. "Shut up and see if Morpheus is dead," Fang Ling gave the order directly. "Yes, yes." Bruce didn't dare to argue, after all, the other party was holding a gun behind him. He. Just when Bruce was about to take a step forward, Morpheus's voice sounded again, and even the dullest person could hear the mocking meaning in it. "Get out of the way," Fang Ling's voice came again. Bruce didn't dare to neglect, and almost at the moment Fang Ling fired, he moved 2 steps to the left, that is, away from Morpheus. Fang Ling put on a new magazine and started a new round of shooting again, but the office chair remained motionless. The bullet penetrated the chair and seemed to fail to pass through the back of the chair. The damage caused to the person sitting on the chair was 0. This is not the most important thing. Bruce, who looked in the direction of Morpheus from the side, shouted, "Fang Ling, we were fooled, that's not Morpheus there." Fang Ling ran out of bullets again, threw away the Axe-74U short assault rifle in her hand, and looked at Bruce. Bruce understood what Fang Ling meant, so he walked over and turned the office chair in a circle. He saw that the person sitting on the chair was just a doll wearing a white wig. It was not Morpheus at all. It seemed that he was still there. Not stupid enough to go to the shower in person to carry out the plan. In other words, everything Bruce and Fang Ling did tonight was useless. In Morpheus's view, these two people were two clowns performing for him, and what these two people did in the control room had been recorded and sent to the Lighthouse Country and the Eastern Country, telling them to assassinate him. The conspiracy has failed. Along with the video, there was also an ultimatum of a final reply time of 4 hours. When the sun rises over the coastline seen by the Institute of the Atlantic, if Murphys had not received $5 billion from each of the two countries, missiles loaded with T-virus gas would have been launched. The image on the big screen suddenly changed, and the calm figure of Morpheus appeared. He was holding a glass of red wine in his hand and said, "There is no place for you trash in the New World. You will sink in the Atlantic Ocean with the shower, which represents the sunset of Umbrella." After that, the screen went black, and Morpheus continued to prepare for the missile launch. "It's bad hearing Morpheus' words," Bruce muttered, "what we do here is known to the upper level, and I don't know how they will see us." This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. I don't care about these and for Fang Ling's upper level, as long as Fang Ling can complete the task, it's enough. Bruce thought so too, but he simply didn't care much about the evaluation of him. From the current situation, he should be in the Atlantic Research Institute, and the missile silo and other things may also be there, Bruce said. Fang Ling nodded and said, "So the first thing we have to do is to escape from here, and then go to the Atlantic Research Institute." "We are on the way to the Atlantic Research Institute, and we will soon hit the cliffs of the island where the Atlantic Research Institute is located." Luo Guang stood at the door of the control room without going in and said, When did you come?" Fang Ling was quietly touched behind her, and she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. She turned around with her pistol and aimed at Luo Guang. 2 gunshots rang out, and Luo Guang was faster than the other party, and one shot hit Fang Ling's pistol. The first shot made Fang Ling unable to aim at Luo Guang, and the second shot directly made Fang Ling's pistol fall out of her hand and fall to the ground. Hey! Hey! "We are not enemies," Bruce said hurriedly. Fang Ling rubbed her hands, looked at Luo Guang with a vigilant face, and asked, "Who are you?" "Black Cat, go and see if you can stop this ship. If not, quickly copy the data." "We don't have much time," Luo Guang gave Jill an order. Because of Luo Guang's 2 shots, Bruce and Fang Ling watched Jill come in and did not act rashly. Jill's first move after coming in was to shoot the surveillance cameras in the room. Because Bruce and Fang Ling were here, she did not use steel pipes to smash the cameras. After arranging what Jill was going to do, Luo Guang answered Fang Ling's words, before asking others to introduce their homes. "Why don't you introduce your own first?" "Oh, Bruce doesn't need to." Fang Ling did not answer, her eyes moved left and right, constantly thinking about how to get out of this dilemma. "Forget it if you don't want to say it, I have no interest in your organization anyway. Anyway, your mission ends here, and we will take over the next thing. Meow, thank you for subscribing, voting and rewarding Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 201. Chapter 196, Assignment of Tasks. "You guys," Fang Ling rubbed the hand that just held the gun and asked. Luo Guang replied, "We are from the GIMZ unit." "GIMZ unit? How come you are here?" Fang Ling thought of many possibilities, but she really didn't guess that it would be from the GIMZ unit. Although Luo Guang put down his gun, he didn't completely let down his guard. Although Fang Ling was similar to his target, it was obvious that Fang Ling was not as easy to talk to as Bruce. Hasn't our unit's official website always written in bold and large fonts? The business scope is mainly anti-biochemical crisis, and the purpose is to maintain world peace. In other words, someone hired you. Fang Ling wanted to find out the employer of GIMZ for this mission. Luo Guang shook his head and said, "No, our team has expanded recently, so this mission is to train soldiers and clean up the Atlantic Research Institute by the way." Regarding the T/G fusion virus and other things, he naturally wouldn't say it. You mercenaries are so kind to solve problems for world peace. Fang Ling obviously didn't believe Luo Guang's nonsense. Why not? The boss of our army is very righteous and loyal. All the customers who have cooperated with us give us a thumbs up. Fang Ling was suspicious, and Luo Guang didn't expect that the other party would be convinced by him. Bruce had other ideas about Luo Guang's words, because after he knew the existence of the GIMZ unit, he looked for information about the GIMZ unit in the archives of the Special Operations Command. What if he retired from the Special Operations Command? There would be a place to go, right? In this information, it was mentioned that the GIMZ unit seemed to have some connection with the Red Claws. Because it was not a good thing to publicize that the country was threatened by some random people, so this matter was only circulated in the White House for the time being, and it was not leaked out. Naturally, the Red Claws, which had personnel from various NATO member countries, did not go out. But the captain of the Red Claws, Samus, hates Resident Evil, so it is possible that the Red Claws knew about the Atlantic Institute and told GIMZ, and it is even possible that the Lighthouse country is their employer for this mission. Fang Ling's reaction was beyond Luo Guang's expectation. After hearing what Luo Guang said, she actually nodded. Her organization also has intelligence about the GIMZ organization, but unlike the Special Operations Command, her organization focuses on the boss of the GIMZ team. Apart from other things, Fang Ling knows that the boss of the GIMZ team, Wu Song, has invested in the Oriental country, sponsored schools, etc. From this aspect, Fang Ling should not say that mercenaries are people who live for money. To be precise, the boss of GIMZ is indeed a good person from his current performance, but the only problem is that there is too little information about Wu Song, and it is full of unknowns. There's nothing useful here, and the system is locked. We dare not hack it on the ship. Jill looked at the silent people and reported to Luo Guang. Then let's retreat quickly, Luo Guang said, and turned away first. Bruce glanced at Fang Ling, walked in front of Fang Ling, and said, "No matter what, we still have to escape from this sinking ship. You go first." Still the same, Fang Ling let Bruce go first, but after confirming that Bruce turned around and left, she took out her communicator. This way, Ji Xiu looked at Luo Guang and others who ran out of the deck and waved his hand. Luo Guang did not hesitate. There was only a few hundred meters between the shower and the cliff, and he quickly boarded the lifeboat with the people behind him. The lifeboat was quickly dropped, the engine was turned on, and Tyrone controlled the lifeboat to quickly move away from the shower. The shower was like a ghost ship. No one was walking on the deck, but the whole ship was emitting luxurious lights, as if someone was still having a cheerful party inside. In order to destroy the shower exactly, Morpheus seemed to have added some materials to it. The shower, which hit the cliff, had an unusually huge explosion. The light of the explosion started from the front and went all the way to the stern. A large number of fragments were blown up to the sky and fell like metal rain. Although the lifeboat was already some distance away from the shower, Tyrone decided to stay away for safety. Such a good ship is gone just like that. It's such a waste. The person who said this was not Luo Guang, who wanted to buy a cruise ship before, but Ji Xiu, who was born with a golden key. The ship is good, but there are so many mechanisms. Aren't you afraid of getting lost and trapped in it? After escaping from the dangerous place, Jill was in the mood to chat. Ji Xiu snorted a few times, sat in the lifeboat, punched a few times, and said, "Then use force to break it?" Luo Guang smiled. It seemed simple for him to break the door, but in fact, ordinary people could not do this, and it was easy to hurt themselves. The door panels on the shower are all made of solid wood and thick wood, so for normal people, the most convenient option is to find a way to break the door lock. "Where are we going now?" Tyrone was controlling the lifeboat to go around the island, looking for a place to land. Jill had already discussed the plan with Luo Guang on the way to the second control room, and looked at Luo Guang. "Going further, there are too many reefs in this area." Luo Guang was from the GIMZ force, so it was normal for him to be familiar with the situation on the island in advance. Neither Bruce nor Fang Ling raised any questions. "Eh? How did you know?" "Master, I have taught you before that you should always pay attention to the surrounding environment. If you look a little further away, you can see the exposed reefs near the tidal flats. That's why the sheriff speculated that there are hidden reefs in places that cannot be seen." "More?" Tai Lung patiently explained to Ji Xiu. While waiting for Luo Guang, Tai Long repaired Ji's disc based on what happened tonight, and for a while he still didn't break away from the role of teacher. "Let's land there." "It doesn't look like there are any reefs." Luo Guang saw the designated response position and pointed it out to Tai Lung. Tai Lung observed for a while and found no problem. After Ji Xiu nodded, Tai Lung controlled the lifeboat to go there. Bruce and Fang Ling didn't raise any objections. Since they contacted their own organizations, they have stayed quietly. The lifeboat shut down its engine early and then lifted up, relying on its inertia to rush directly onto the beach. Everyone dragged the lifeboat away from the tide line and walked into the woods on the shore. When Keith was about to ask about the next plan, Tyrone pulled him over and protected him behind him. Ji Xiu didn't know what happened yet. Bruce and Fang Ling also noticed that they were surrounded, but did not make any reaction. Instead, they looked at Luo Guang together. "Don't be nervous, Tai Long. My people are also the ones who will take you away from here," Luo Guang said with a smile. Boss Wang Shuhong came from the shadows, came to Luo Guang's side, and whispered. Wang Shuhong's Homo sapiens team served as the reserve team and response team in this mission. Nothing would happen for a while anyway, so Luo Guang specially arranged for them to come over and pick up Ji Xiu and the others. With Ji Xiu's consent, he and Tai Lung cooperated very well with the GIMZ troop members who appeared around them. However, Bruce and Fang Ling seemed to have other plans and sneaked out unprepared. It seemed that they were not worried about Luo Guang and the others. The gun killed them on the spot. Of course, Luo Guang really didn't dare and gave the order to the third team in advance. However, to Luo Guang, neither Bruce nor Fang Ling are particularly important figures, but the problem is the support behind them, which is not something Luo Guang and the GIMZ troops can mess with. "Third Captain, take Ji Xiu and the others away. Black Cat, keep an eye on me while I chase those two people." After Luo Guang finished speaking, he dodged and rushed into the jungle. "Black Cat, right? Let's go first, the boss will follow soon." Wang Shuhong didn't know the identity of this Black Cat, nor the relationship between him and his boss, but it was rare to see the boss bring a with women around him. Wang Shuhong also had some guesses in his mind. Jill nodded and said nothing. She wanted to take this opportunity to get to know Luo Guang's GIMZ unit, just to see if it could be used in the BSS unit that she and Chris would soon establish. Luo Guang caught up with Fang Ling in an instant. Fang Ling also noticed that Luo Guang was following behind. She grabbed a tree trunk with one hand, turned her body around the trunk, and whipped her whip straight towards Luo Guang. However, Luo Guang stabilized his body, and Fang Ling's whip kicked in front of Luo Guang. Luo Guang, with quick eyes and quick hands, grabbed Fang Ling's ankle from behind and stopped Fang Ling's movement. What? Fang Ling was very surprised. The pain coming from her ankle made her dare not use brute force to break free. The opponent's strength was much higher than hers. Being grabbed by the ankle, Fang Ling could be said to be in a losing position. When Bruce saw this, he immediately turned back and wanted to help Fang Ling out of the siege. As a result, Luo Guang threw Fang Ling directly towards Bruce's position. Could Bruce refuse to pick up a beauty flying towards him? There was no need to even think about this question. The pistol was thrown directly on the dirt, and his hands were always ready to hug the beauty back. However, Luo Guang's throwing force was not as pity for the beauty, and it was quite different from Bruce's inner prediction. So when Fang Ling bumped into Bruce, Bruce felt as if his chest had been hit by an elephant. He almost couldn't get back up, but his footplate was unsteady. Bruce leaned back and fell to the ground with Fang Ling. "You guys really didn't let go," Luo Guang complained to Bruce, and knocked out the two people on the ground with 2 punches. "Boss, it was solved so quickly." Someone from the Homo sapiens team waved his hand and said with a smile. Luo Guang dragged out 2 people from the woods. It was Bruce and Fang Ling. It wasn't that Luo Guang didn't care about the beauty, but he didn't have the tools in his hands, and he didn't have the time to make a stretcher for him. As for carrying Fang Ling on his back, Gil would be jealous of. So after thinking about it, Luo Guang unknowingly adopted his most comfortable position, holding a person's collar with one hand and dragging him out of the woods. Ji Xiu and Tai Lung looked at Bruce and Fang Ling, who were covered in scars, and couldn't help but feel that it was a wise choice for them to cooperate obediently. "Old Wang, please bring these people on board. You can take Ji Xiu and the others for a tour, but Bruce and Fang Ling need to be under surveillance. They are official people." The boat Hank and the others came on was a newly purchased one, so there was no special information. Anyway, Luo Guang mentioned the backgrounds of Bruce and Wang Shuhong, and he knew how to deal with it. After watching Wang Shuhong and his team take the people on the assault boat, Luo Guang took Jill and started to head to the Atlantic Research Institute. Except for the third team, the other teams got the attack mission and had arrived near the Atlantic Research Institute. The third team failed to get the attack mission again, but unlike the mission Luo Guang arranged for Sina Island, this time the third team drew this mission by lottery. Wang Shuhong, who felt that he was unlucky, still let his teammates draw the mission, but he didn't expect that it would still confirm his bad premonition. Fortunately, his boss needed someone to pick him up, otherwise Wang Shuhong felt that his team might not even have the opportunity to set foot on the island for this raid on the Atlantic Research Institute. Luo Guang contacted Hank with the walkie-talkie given to him by Wang Shuhong, and took Jill to catch up with the large force led by Hank. "Boss," Hank said after looking at Jill. "What's the situation?" Hank and his team simply built a command post in the woods, and Luo Guang asked. The command post was very simple, without any electronic equipment such as generators. It only had tactical boards, convenient tents, and other gadgets, which also functioned as a field hospital, allowing the injured to confirm whether they were infected before returning to the ship, and to carry out some emergency treatment. Victor and Caroline have already set out for preliminary reconnaissance. According to their report, there are no mercenaries guarding the Atlantic Research Institute, only zombies, but they found that there are many traces of trucks on the road to the mountain, all of which are relatively new. Hank introduced it to Luo Guang, and did not ask about Jill's identity or whether he needed to avoid it. Murphy's is planning to launch missiles to the Lighthouse Country and the Oriental Country, threatening to do so if he is not paid. Luo Guang told Hank about this matter in a simple way, which was actually saying that the mountain might be a missile silo. Hank thought about it and said, "If there are trucks, it means that the mercenaries may be guarding there. In this case, if we divide our forces, we may not have enough manpower. The mercenaries on the mountain and the mercenaries on the ship are not from the same faction. The mercenaries on the ship are actually sent by Murphy's sponsors, so Murphy's does not trust them. On the contrary, The mercenaries on the mountain were organized by him after he was fired, so they are more trustworthy. Hearing Luo Guang's words, the Chen brothers looked very solemn, and the Echo team was the same. Although both countries have complete air defense systems, they are afraid of the worst. If they fail to defend, it will be a big trouble. Just as they were thinking about the task of seizing the missile silo, Luo Guang began to arrange the tasks and said, "Hank said that there is a shortage of manpower, so let's concentrate on doing big things. All of you go to deal with those missiles, and I will deal with the Atlantic Research Institute." "I'm going to the Atlantic Research Institute as expected," Collis jumped out immediately. Luo Guang did not answer immediately, but asked Hank, "Will the absence of Collis and his team affect your operations?" Hank thought for a while, assigned tasks to each team in his mind, and said, "No problem, but the third team must be ready at any time." Luo Guang first brought the people he brought out from the shower, then modified the plan and said, "Then the sixth team will directly raid the Atlantic Research Institute to attract Morpheus' attention to Hank and his team, and I can also take the opportunity to sneak in." Collis nodded, not knowing what difficulty of the task he chose. He just felt that his current boss was good, unlike the head of the African branch of the X organization who did not listen to his opinions. Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 202. Chapter 197, Failed Biochemical Weapon Pluto. GIMZ Squad 6, Koken Squad is now tasked with firing the first shot, which makes Coley feel valued. Collis' teammates also felt the same way and charged forward with great interest. The first shot naturally had to be given to Collis, so no one else, including the precision shooter, fired, otherwise they were worried that Collis would get angry and beat them up again. Luo Guang knew that there were violent incidents in Squad 6, but those people did not report to Luo Guang after being treated violently. Luo Guang asked them about the violent incidents in a vague way, but they did not show any dissatisfaction or fear of Collis on their faces, so Luo Guang had to wonder if they were masochists or had Stockholm Syndrome. On the outskirts of the Atlantic Research Institute, Murphy's released several zombie dogs to serve as the Institute's early warning device. The zombie dogs resting in the doghouse heard the movement, stretched their necks, raised their heads, and observed the direction of the sound. The Koken team had no intention of hiding their actions, and it was their wishful thinking to take the lead. In fact, some people in other teams have already realized that the mission of the sixth team is actually to serve as bait for other teams, and this kind of work is bound to result in heavy casualties. But as mentioned before, Collis is not popular in the GIMZ team. Usually, except for the people in his team, no one else will take the initiative to talk to Collis. Some people in the GIMZ team also think that Luo Guang should not recruit such people into the team and affect the team's affairs, so when they saw that the sixth team got this task, some people secretly rejoiced. Moreover, in the combat meeting just now, Collis neither reported nor raised his hand, and directly jumped out to make his own request, which was a very disrespectful approach to the boss's status, so the boss asked them to take on this high-risk task, which was also Collis's own fault. After all, this task does not require luring troops. The zombie dogs stared at the enemy and charged quickly. Moreover, these zombie dogs were very smart. When they saw and recognized the weapons in the hands of the Koken team, their running route immediately changed to a zigzag shape. Collis was holding an AUG assault rifle in his hand. He aimed the gun and did not stop his steps. He fired and fired. With Collis firing the first shot, the people behind him finally breathed a sigh of relief and started shooting. The teammates with assault rifles were fine, but the guy with M14 precision marksman rifle was not. This guy with a short haircut was the precision shooter in the team. He needed to stand still, then calm his heart rate and breathing a little, and finally raise his gun for accurate shooting. The result was that he found that he didn't need to shoot, and those zombie dogs had been solved by his teammates. The guy with the short haircut smiled bitterly. His teammates really didn't worry about the problem of insufficient bullets. They each used a magazine to solve the zombie dogs. Although this mission can be completed in about 1 or 2 days, so they basically only need to carry weapons and ammunition, and do not need to carry food and other equipment, but money is not squandered like that. The short-haired man thought so in his heart, but he did not dare to express his opinion to Collis, and could only pray in his heart that there were enough bullets for this mission. When he arrived at the entrance, Collis gave up the leading position and commanded the demolition hands behind him to go forward and blow up the entrance directly, which was also convenient for direct retreat and the boss to sneak in later. Because in addition to acting as bait, they also had to open the way for the boss, solve the cameras outside the institute, break the main door and other tasks. With a loud bang, accompanied by the last camera outside the Atlantic Institute being broken, Collis led people into the Atlantic Institute. Murphy's was sitting in the office of the institute, watching the sixth team coming in from the surveillance, with a cruel smile on his face. Someone else could taste the stuff he prepared. At this time, Morpheus was the only living person in the Atlantic Research Institute. Most of the equipment in the institute was controlled by an intelligent system developed by Umbrella Corporation, so it was natural to prepare some fun for those uninvited guests. Pluto, one of Umbrella Corporation's failed biological weapons, has the same name as the Roman god of hell. In fact, Pluto is just a mutant human, not a biological weapon. This person is not a pitiful person. He was originally imprisoned for a capital crime. Later, Umbrella Corporation made a deal with the Lighthouse State, allowing this death row prisoner to voluntarily participate in what he thought was a drug experiment in exchange for his freedom and life. He was then taken to the Atlantic Research Institute, where he was locked up for a month before the experiment began, which caused him extreme pain. Seeing him in such pain, Umbrella researchers kindly inserted a metal rod into his frontal lobe to prevent him from feeling pain, and even those researchers believed that this was necessary for humanitarian reasons. On September 29, 1996, his eyes were surgically removed to participate in the study of the impact on his senses. In the following days, he was constantly injected with experimental steroids by researchers, or more commonly known as muscle enhancers. Then Pluto's muscles began to grow wildly, and the muscle mass of his upper body even became 10 times the original. Then his body was used as a virus testing site, and a large amount of inhibitory drugs and various viruses were injected. None of these difficulties took his life. Even Pluto's body finally responded to the loss of vision and enhanced his hearing, allowing him to track the actions of researchers and guards. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. At this time, Pluto had become a fat man over 3 meters tall. 2 months after the experiment, Pluto used his excellent hearing to escape. His personality became violent and brutal, and he easily killed 5 guards during the escape. Murphy's was a pure researcher. He considered himself a genius, but the safety standards he formulated on his own actually had serious flaws. Afterwards, he failed to organize a successful capture plan, resulting in Pluto not being recaptured in the end. With no other choice, Murphy's could only trap Pluto in the storage room. For this matter, Murphy's naturally would not admit his failure, so he called it the latest defense method of the Atlantic Institute, and asked people to change the nameplate of the storage room to the virus storage room, just to lure people with bad intentions in. Collis became the second beneficiary of this trap. The first one was naturally the member of the X organization who came to find Ada before. Rushing into the storage room with great expectations, Collis immediately turned on the flashlight. As soon as he came in, he found that something was wrong. Although the zombies were getting denser and denser all the way here, as if they were protecting something, there was no light in this virus storage room, and the refrigeration system was not started, and there was no intention to store the virus at all. Turning on the flashlight under the muzzle and taking a step forward, Collis found that he had kicked something. The flashlight shone down and it was a corpse that was half trampled and its internal organs turned into sauce. Others also noticed the movement of Collis and saw the miserable state of the corpse. Some people felt uneasy and took a step back, and were seen by Collis. Collis cursed angrily, "What are you afraid of? It's just a corpse." This sentence was the signal to locate Pluto, and a huge figure rushed over with heavy steps. After all, there were sounds and ground vibrations, so Collis and his team had a clue and found Pluto in an instant. Pluto was tall, with his flesh stacked like a 1,000-layer cake. His legs were strong and powerful, and Pluto's hands, the right hand of which was normal, but it became much larger, which matched his enlarged body, but his left hand turned into a huge muscle stick, like a pillar replacing the entire arm. With a speed that did not match his appearance, the monster Pluto quickly came in front of Collis, raised his left arm and smashed at him. Collis immediately jumped to one side, and at the same time, the flashlight moved to the landing point to confirm the safety of the landing place. On the other side, Collis's teammates fired back, and the short-haired man fired first, shooting 2 shots directly at Pluto's head. Pluto's neck was thick, full of fat, and squeezed his head, which looked like he was wearing a pillow ring, causing his head to be pressed up, and the muscles of his neck also blocked Pluto's chin. This guy's muscles are like the fat of the previous cook zombie, which can provide stronger protection than that, but it is still not enough to face the standard rifle bullet of 7. But the muscles still successfully deflected the bullet slightly, and finally failed to hit the head. As the gunshots rang out, Pluto began to shoot whoever he heard, and the people of the Koken team did not dare to spread out too much in this dark environment, otherwise it would be easy to accidentally hurt. Nearly half a pound of bullets were shot into Pluto's body, but this did not affect his movements at all. Pluto, who lost his sense of pain, would not fall into stiffness because of the pain, and he was chasing the people of the Koken team frantically. Pluto's absolute speed could not catch up with anyone in the Koken team, let alone the previous X-organization masters. This shows that the danger lurking in this storage room is not only Pluto, a huge monster. One of the assaulters of the Koken team was retreating while changing bullets. Suddenly, there was a pulling force on his ankle, and he lost his balance accidentally. A zombie pretending to be dead held the ankle of the food, pulled it with his hand, and bit forward with his mouth, biting directly on the calf muscle and biting it off. The pain was unbearable, and the assaulter couldn't help but scream. Pluto followed and smashed the assaulter into a meat paste. "Damn it!" Collis cursed his teammates for their stupidity. "Captain, there are zombies in the back, 6 in number." Collis didn't want his team to be wiped out at the first level, so he immediately shouted, "Follow me." Everyone followed Collis's order and followed Collis. This situation was obviously an enemy trap, and the door should have been closed long ago, so Collis was not trying to go back to the door to escape, but to quickly understand the terrain and clean up the ordinary zombies awakened by the gunshots. After Collis told his men his plan in the simplest way, he immediately began to execute it. The plan was beautiful, but it was not easy to implement. The shelves, cargo boxes, and other obstacles in the storage room became even more chaotic because of Pluto's commotion, scattered all over the floor, and the terrain of the entire storage room became even more complicated. The members of the Koken team were forced to disperse as they fought. Before, because the distance between the two sides was relatively close, Collis did not use grenades, but now because there are a lot of obstacles, he immediately took out the grenade and threw it to the back to block Pluto's steps. Collis did not attend Hank's small class on antibiochemical, but his demolisher had heard of it. So this time he carried a portable mounted grenade launcher, which was installed under his M401 assault rifle. The only problem is that the grenades he carried were set with a safe distance, and the grenade would not explode if the distance was too close. It's okay to use grenades to hit ordinary zombies directly, but if it is used to deal with the huge monster following behind, the demolisher thinks it shouldn't cause much damage. The man with a short haircut was acting with the demolisher. When he saw the demolisher reaching for the trigger of the mounted grenade launcher, he understood what the other party was thinking. When Colossus' grenade exploded and Pluto's action was blocked, the man with a short haircut thought of a way and said, "The grenade can make the monster pause for a while. This can keep the monster away from us." The buzz-cut man didn't say this, but the demolisher understood what he meant. This was not because they had a tacit understanding, but because they had been fighting on the battlefield for many years and came to the same conclusion. The two quickly changed positions. The M14 rifle was relatively heavy and over 1,000 millimeters long. So the buzz-cut man immediately took out his Glock pistol and continued to move forward to deal with the zombies that might jump out from the corner. Colossus' plan was good, but the reality was cruel. Facing the sudden zombies, not everyone could escape easily. When Colossus gathered the team again, he found that apart from him, only the buzz-cut man and the demolisher were still alive. "Damn it," Colossus cursed angrily and directed the demolisher to use rifle grenades. Pluto was hit by multiple grenades, which had consumed a lot of his energy. Facing the incendiary grenades that the demolisher had specially replaced, the grease on Pluto's body was simply the best combustion aid. The flames instantly surrounded Pluto, but Pluto didn't seem to feel hot. He walked towards Colossus and the other two with the same pace. There was no choice but to keep running and then use the gun to make up for the damage. Looking at the flames, the short-haired man couldn't help but worry that if the flames continued to burn, the oxygen in the storage room would not be enough for him and the others. Fortunately, Colossus and the other two managed to get out alive. The three of them left the storage room with sweat on their heads. As soon as they went out, they breathed in the not-so-fresh air, but it was better than the thick smoke in the room. After this incident, the short-haired man realized that it was enough to suffocate himself by inhaling the thick smoke all the time, and there was no need to burn all the oxygen in the room. It is worth mentioning that the door of the storage room was not blown open by them. It was a reward given to the three brave men by the Demon King Morpheus, and he had prepared the next level for the three mice. Meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 203. Chapter 198 Injection of TG Fusion Virus. Hyperion B. This is not a long pole-based weapon, but a biochemical weapon created by Umbrella Corporation in the waste treatment facility below the Atlantic Research Institute. This biochemical weapon can use a powerful barbed stinger to attack, with horseshoe crab-like bone armor on the back for protection, multiple legs and arms, each arm is a sickle, and can use slashing, stabbing, hooking, and other attack methods to face possible threats. This biochemical weapon was designed by a research team of the Atlantic Research Institute's Biosphere project. It was created by hybridizing the genes of horseshoe crabs with surviving cockroaches, and because of the researchers' accident, the DNA of wasps was mixed in, and finally cultivated into its current appearance. Most importantly, the ecological environment of the Hyperion bee is similar to the ecological environment and social structure of ants or bees, and there is a huge queen to breed the entire population. Fortunately, the queen is both the source of the Hyperion bee colony's strength and the weakness of the Hyperion bee colony. Colossus and others, who were chased by the Hyperion bee colony all the way, finally found the queen after much hardship. After using a burning grenade and dozens of bullets, the Koken team vented their anger at being hunted. After solving the queen hornet, the other hornets lost control and ignored Colossus and his team and fought each other, as if they were deciding the next queen. So Colossus and his team took the opportunity to slip over and bring back the flamethrower later. This waste treatment facility is the underground city prepared by Morpheus for the invaders, so naturally there will not be only such a terrifying monster. In Morpheus's view, These are just inferior biological weapons developed by previous researchers. These failures will die, and it is their honor to be able to protect themselves and die. The second biological weapon faced by the Koken team is a biological weapon called Nautilus, which is naturally a failure. It is also unclear why the researcher who was responsible for studying Nautilus at the time secretly abandoned Nautilus in the drainage area of the waste treatment facility. Due to poor facility management, this creature grew and reproduced indefinitely in the drainage area, and soon developed and mutated in the process of adapting to the environment. After the then director Murphys reported this strange mutation, the Paris Institute of Umbrella Corporation, which is the upper level of the Atlantic Institute, asked Murphys to conduct long-term observation and collect data. Although the cause of the mutation of the Nautilus was not finally figured out, the collected data provided a lot of help to the Paris Institute in studying amphibian biochemical weapons. Later, the Paris Institute was also rewarded by the upper level, and Murphys, who knew about this, was naturally unhappy. These Nautilus originally came from a creature of the class Ascidion, and were later transformed into a Nautilus-like appearance. The most peculiar thing about this biochemical weapon is that these Nautilus themselves have no offensive power, but they will continuously hatch a kind of larvae called torpedo boys by researchers. These larvae have a sad face on the front, which looks like a human child, and the body contains Nautilus larvae containing strong acid. At the same time, because these things move like torpedoes in the water and can jump out of the water to attack enemies along the coast, they are called torpedo boys. When a torpedo boy comes into contact with an enemy, it will explode, and the Nautilus larvae in its body will invade the enemy's body through the injured epidermis. The members of the Koken team came to the area where the Nautilus was located. Looking at the huge shell in the distance, it is clear that this thing must not grow so big by eating. After so many things, Collis also understood that biological weapons cannot rely too much on his previous experience, so he did not launch an attack immediately. He was stunned by reality and commanded the demolition hand and the precision shooter to retreat. Collis wanted to ask the demolition hand who had taken the anti-biological class for his opinion. Morpheus sat on the fishing platform and saw that the enemy did not move forward rashly. He did not have many ideas in his mind. An enemy who was too reckless could not perform a wonderful drama. He was focusing on the Koken team and did not notice the figures of Luo Guang and Jill flashing in other surveillance. After entering the Atlantic Research Institute, Luo Guang and Jill did not act together, but chose to act separately. Jill was responsible for destroying the research data and viruses in the institute, while Luo Guang was naturally responsible for dealing with Murphys and delaying him to prevent him from manipulating the organs in the institute and causing trouble for Jill. In Luo Guang's opinion, Murphy's side was more dangerous, but in Jill's opinion, the place where the viruses and data were tightly protected was more dangerous. By chance, the two did not argue at all, nor did they draw lots, but directly assigned their respective tasks. With a loud bang, the door of Murphy's office was instantly blown open by Luo Guang. Before controlling or destroying the monitoring system, Luo Guang was not prepared to expose too much of his power. At this time, Luo Guang was still wearing the black cat sheriff mask that represented justice. Murphy squinted his eyes and looked at Luo Guang. He quickly pressed an emergency button on the console, and then said calmly, "There are other mice coming in." The word mouse was used by Murphys to mock Luo Guang's black cat mask. After the emergency button was pressed, a thick glass window lowered directly, separating Luo Guang and Morpheus. "You have been arrested. If you don't want to get hurt, please hold your head and cry immediately, otherwise I will have to empty the bullets and send you to hell." Luo Guang pointed the weapon in his hand at Morpheus behind the glass and said. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Morpheus sneered, "Just with the little pistol in your hand. The worst case scenario is that I'll waste my time here and tear down the walls, ceilings, and floors around this glass." Luo Guang wasn't worried at all. If he kept wasting his time here, the only person who would lose in the end would be Morpheus. There is an emergency escape under Morpheus's desk. However, he is not the kind of person to run away when something goes wrong, so he has already prepared backup plans to deal with the current situation. Under the current situation, Morpheus felt that the other party would not be able to do anything to him for a while, so he said, "I have a little impression of you, the buyer on the shower, right?" Luo Guang nodded, took out new explosives and detonating devices from his backpack, and said, "So now I'm here to seek revenge from you." He. Luo Guang's words before seemed like those of a policeman, but now they have become those of an avenger, so Morpheus would not believe Luo Guang's nonsense at all. "I really don't understand, you umbrella people, can't you just hold an auction properly? Why are you always doing these conspiracies? Do you really think other people are fools?" Luo Guang didn't understand why the brain circuits of those at Umbrella Company were so strange and they were always trying to cause trouble. When he said this, Luo Guang naturally classified himself as not a member of Umbrella Company. "I'm not from Umbrella. Their group of short-sighted people don't understand my aesthetics at all, as well as my genius research ability." As soon as Morpheus heard that Luo Guang had included him in Umbrella's range, he immediately became angry. Umbrella was his enemy. Genius? Do you think you are William Birkin? If you are such a genius, why did you send people to seize the virus in the Paris Institute? It's not like you, a loser, failed to develop a powerful virus. He had obtained information before, and Morpheus was a proud perfectionist. This kind of person will not tell you important things just because you stroke his hair. Doing so will only make him tell you what he is proud of. So Luo Guang wanted to anger the other party, and this anger was very simple. In just a few words, he could see the angry emotion on Morpheus's cold and neutral face. William Birkin, Morpheus had not heard this name for more than a year. It was because of William Birkin that when the Arclay virus was leaked, he was dismissed by Umbrella as a scapegoat. William Birkin. Morpheus clenched his fists with his hands, his shoulders shaking with extreme anger. Luo Guang ignored Morpheus's anger. The explosive device had been installed and he had to stay away. Morpheus saw Luo Guang retreating, but he was extremely angry and ignored him. He took out a syringe from the inside of his black leather robe. This is the 092 version of the virus that he improved with the researchers he followed after getting the T/G fusion virus studied by the Paris Research Institute. The Tyrant 091 mentioned before was actually injected with the 091 version of the T/G fusion virus. As a result, due to the matching ratio, the Tyrant 091 did not show the bioelectrical properties of the T/G fusion virus. This 092 version is a complete virus version with strong current. After the 092 version of the T/G fusion virus was developed and Morpheus obtained the only virus sample, all the researchers who assisted in the development were silenced by Morpheus, and all relevant version 092 research materials were destroyed. Because in Morpheus's opinion, it is enough for him to be the only god who is about to give birth to a new world. Without any hesitation, Morpheus injected the only 092 T/G fusion virus sample into his body. Immediately after Morpheus's action, the countdown of the explosive installed by Luo Guang ended, and a violent explosion occurred. Luo Guang hid outside the door, covering his ears. Before leaving Morpheus's office, he saw the other party taking out a virus sample, so he walked directly into the office before the smoke cleared. Thinking that these researchers like to carry virus samples with them, Luo Guang feels that the mission of finding Morpheus is even more dangerous. This reinforced glass performed its duty well. Although it cracked and shattered all over the place after the explosion, it still protected Morpheus behind him. As for the glass shards flying due to the explosion, it was impossible to penetrate Morpheus' body armor similar to that of the Goddess of Vengeance. At this time, Morpheus's face was in great pain, his whole body was twitching, and lightning visible to the naked eye appeared around his body, as if he had been electrocuted. Luo Guang took out his pistol and took advantage of Morpheus's transformation to shoot, trying to interrupt the opponent's mutation. However, the lightning was not just beautiful to look at. The crazy current and the chaotic magnetic field formed, coupled with the bulletproof robe, made Luo Guang's bullets useless. Morpheus, who had his back to Luo Guang and his head lowered, also lost his ability. Luo Guang had no choice but to aim at Morpheus's head. Seeing this, Luo Guang understood that he had encountered a tough enemy and began to prepare for battle. The console in the office was the Atlantic Institute's surveillance video storage point, which was also destroyed due to the current generated by Morpheus, but Luo Guang didn't know this yet. Morpheus's yearning for beauty has reached a level that is difficult for ordinary people to understand. He believes that he is the embodiment of beauty. Before being injected with the T/G fusion virus, he had undergone a large number of plastic surgeries and body modification surgeries. T/G fusion viruses or viruses based on the ancestor virus can all depend on the will of the host to a certain extent, so Morpheus' mutated form also perfectly interprets him. It should be said that it is her interpretation of beauty. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Morpheus's body began to become thinner, but his height became much taller, his thighs became more fleshy, his robe fell off, and his chin became more pointed and elongated. Because of the electric current, the temperature around Morpheus was much higher than the surroundings, and all his clothes were ignited, burned, and fell off. The right hand grew a huge claw with the characteristics of a super tyrant, while the left hand did not change much. The originally pale skin has become even whiter, a rib-like bony structure has appeared on the abdomen, and similar semicircular bony protrusions have appeared on the thighs. The bone spurs pierced the skin from the back half of the sole of the foot and stretched out, allowing Morpheus to wear high heels. These are minor cosmetic changes. The most important point is that the injected T/G fusion virus did not destroy Morpheus's intelligence, allowing her to strengthen her body functions and gain the ability to generate and control bioelectricity. As soon as the mutation ended, Morpheus immediately looked up at Luo Guang's position, and then tilted his head suddenly. Luo Guang used the short knife made of hardened armor to pass through the opponent's left side hair, then swept the knife horizontally towards Morpheus's head. Morpheus quickly leaned back and made an arching motion to avoid Luo Guang's attack, and then waved his right hand, intending to disembowel Luo Guang. The sharp claws easily cut off Luo Guang's clothes, and then with a dull sound, Luo Guang was knocked away. It is estimated that the strength is 13 and the agility is 18. The special ability depends on the enemy's understanding of current control and can have many changes. This confrontation was Luo Guang's test of Morpheus, and the system immediately reported it to Luo Guang observed data. The enemy's physical attributes are far lower than your own. Except for special abilities, the enhancement points are basically based on flexibility attributes. Morpheus looked at Luo Guang, who stood up using the oolong gallows and moved his claws. He was very confused. It was very different from what he expected. Luo Guang raised his hand and fired. Then Luo Guang saw Morpheus raise his hand, and a flashing electric barrier appeared instantly, blocking the bullet. Bullets are useless to me. After Morpheus said that, electric current flashed in his body, and he suddenly accelerated and rushed towards Luo Guang. Strength has exceeded 15, and agility has exceeded 20. It is speculated that the enemy uses his abilities to strengthen his physical abilities. Luo Guang could tell without the system reminding him, but his hardened armor had been fused with an ability called gel armor. The armor on his body was an insulator, so the damage to Luo Guang from the current would not be too high. Naturally, the current barrier could not stop Luo Guang's dagger made of hardened armor. Luo Guang raised his knife to block Morpheus's sharp claws. Morpheus's left hand quickly reached out to Luo Guang, trying to strangle Luo Guang's neck and then taunt him. A good mage doesn't want to engage in melee combat. You think you are Gandalf? Luo Guang is unforgiving. Even if Morpheus turns into a monster, he has no relevant fighting knowledge, so Luo Guang is not afraid of him at all. Luo Guang instantly took out another hardened armored dagger with his left hand, swung the knife with all his strength, and cut off the opponent's stretched out hand. Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 204. Chapter 199 Fusion of Thor Virus. Morpheus, who had turned into a monster, screamed in pain. After the mutation, her neutral tone became more feminine. Morpheus' body retreated, and at the same time, she instinctively released the current in her body to all directions. Lightning flashed in all directions, and Luo Guang raised his two swords to defend, blocking the neck. The mask Luo Guang wore was made of hardened armor, just like Jill's. Although Luo Guang's neck was also covered with hardened armor, in order to keep his neck flexible, the armor in this place was relatively weak, so Luo Guang chose to defend this position without obstructing his vision. The wound on Morpheus' left hand changed, a tumor appeared, and a new hand was growing again. However, it was not the left hand of a normal person, but a hand cannon, just like a blue Mega Man. Morpheus roared hysterically, holding the hand cannon horizontally. The current was surging in the barrel, the lightning flashed at the muzzle, and the ions were rapidly condensing, and then shot at Luo Guang. Facing the enemy's changes, Luo Guang's expression did not change. The enemy's combat power at this time was not beyond his ability to deal with. With two swords, Luo Guang successfully blocked the electric current ejected by the opponent. Morpheus did not stop, but continued to stimulate his body to generate electricity, and then shot it at Luo Guang. The place where the current and the hardened dagger came into contact began to heat up, which also made up for the weakness of the hardened armor that was afraid of fire before. The hardened armor with a higher melting point was not quickly melted and penetrated by the enemy. Confirming that the cameras and other electronic equipment in the house had been paralyzed by the lightning that Morpheus had just burst out around him, Luo Guang decided to go all out and fight quickly. Otherwise, it would be troublesome when Jill came. Luo Guang thought to himself and set a small goal for himself: just spend 10 seconds. 10. Luo Guang loosened the two daggers he was holding tightly, and at the same time leaned over to avoid the opponent's electric current attack. 9. Morpheus's hand cannon moved down, and Luo Guang dodged to the left. You chased me and I ran away. Morpheus's electric cannon hit whatever he pointed at, and the firing speed was extremely fast. The electric dragon was chasing Luo Guang closely. 8. Luo Guang stepped on the wall and did a backflip, avoiding Morpheus's electric dragon, and then immediately rushed towards Morpheus. 7. Morpheus saw Luo Guang rushing towards him. His arm was broken before, which made him instinctively sense the breath of danger. He couldn't help but take a step back and hurriedly aimed his hand cannon at Luo Guang. 6. No matter how strong the T/G fusion virus is, the current that Morpheus can generate and store in his body at a time is limited, and the energy that his single cell can contain is less than 1/20th of Luo Guang's. As Luo Guang approached, Morpheus's electric dragon finally hit Luo Guang, but the power was much lower than before. 5. Luo Guang quickly dodged to the side, and then threw out a hardened armored flying knife, hitting Morpheus' arm, hitting Morpheus' joint, blocking the next movement of Morpheus' arm. 4. Luo Guang held the new hardened short knife in his left hand, wielding it to cut Morpheus's hand cannon in half. The current in the hand cannon suddenly lost control and went out of control, and the ions vented their violence between Luo Guang and him. 3. Luo Guang resisted the outburst of ions, and his right hand equipped with hardened armor had clenched into a fist. This was the strongest punch that Luo Guang had learned all the way to the present, and the target of this punch was Morpheus's face. Morpheus was just an ordinary researcher before. He happened to close his eyes instinctively when Robin swung his fist, facing the flash that suddenly appeared at close range. 2. From Luo Guang's perspective, the opponent seemed to have accepted his fate and waited for death to come. The fatal punch was not blocked by the current barrier that the opponent's body instinctively maintained. Morpheus's defense was as weak as paper to Luo Guang. This punch did not hit Morpheus's head firmly, but directly penetrated Morpheus's head. 1. T/G fusion virus, although fused with G virus, but the origin of fusion virus is the same, so after Luo Guang defeated the opponent with one punch, Luo Guang immediately tried to activate his ability to assimilate similar tissues, and successfully began to absorb the virus in Murphy's body with all his strength. Luo Guang's current physical attribute data is 23, which can withstand a large amount of energy and T/G fusion virus flowing into the body at the same time. 0. Luo Guang spit out the last number, and Murphy's in front of him has turned into ashes, leaving only inorganic matter that cannot be absorbed. If only the head was smashed, the G virus active gene in the T/G fusion virus in Murphy's body should be activated immediately, allowing Murphy's to mutate into a monster similar to William G5's form, mutating into a powerful devouring ability. Unfortunately, Murphy's met Luo Guang, so she did not have the opportunity to mutate into other monsters. An unknown virus has been detected entering the body. According to the knowledge of the adapter, the virus is named T/G fusion virus, 092 version. With the new virus, the system immediately started working, but the system's words were still so bland, which made Luo Guang feel a little disappointed. The system naturally ignored Luo Guang's idea that it was a disappointment and continued its work. T-virus data extraction completed, analysis started, analysis progress. 69.39%. Analysis progress. 88.21%, analysis completed, began to try to deduce the manufacturing method of the G virus. Derivation failed. Luo Guang dealt with Morpheus, who didn't leave a message, and then began to clean up the scene. When he heard the system's words, Luo Guang was stunned for a moment and thought of something. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. With the mention of intelligence attributes, Luo Guang has a photographic memory, and he can easily recall the knowledge before time travel, so Luo Guang quickly thought of the G virus in the Resident Evil game he played before time travel. Setup. The G virus mutated after the Nemesis parasite was forcibly implanted under the exposure of T virus infection genes. Although I don't know if the setting I saw before was a mistranslated version, Luo Guang still submitted this information to the system. Trying to analyze the Nemesis parasite gene in the T/G fusion virus, the extraction of the template failed. This part of the data is missing from the database, and the analysis failed. It is recommended that adapters obtain the Nemesis parasite gene data. The system naturally tried once, and failure was expected, so Luo Guang was not frustrated by it. No, I don't want parasites to appear in my body. The name parasite is unlucky, and he doesn't want to be parasitized. Received. When faced with harmful parasites, do you want to directly carry out the task of extermination? Judge based on the situation and give priority to the inquiry mode. Luo Guang did not directly decide to let the system kill those parasites. Received. Among the T/G fusion viruses, 36.77% of the genes are the same as the T virus, and 39.21% of the genes are presumed to be the G virus. The two don't add up to 100%, so the system hasn't finished speaking yet. Matching based on the information in the database, the proportion of corresponding identical genes in the database is 4.58%, and the remaining 19.44% genes are unknown genes, which are being analyzed and included in the database. 15.96% of the 19.44% genes are related to biocurrents and are being optimized and redesigned. Because the T/G fusion virus had entered Morpheus's body, some changes had occurred, so the system needed to be readjusted to ensure that it was most suitable for Luo Guang's body. System, although we have not absorbed the G virus, we still have a better sleeping tyrant virus. We are trying to replace the G virus gene in the T/G fusion virus. Although Luo Guang did not acquire the G virus in Raccoon City and subsequent experiences, Luo Guang thought of the sleeping god virus that would only evolve beneficially. Compared with the unpredictable and infinite mutations of the G virus, the sleeping tyrant virus should be more suitable for me. Receive. This was the first time Luo Guang gave his own suggestions when fusing a new virus, and the system implemented Luo Guang's ideas after reconfirmation. Start adjusting the T/G fusion virus gene, and start using the sleeping tyrant virus to replace the G virus gene. In the first attempt, the replacement progress was 29.63%. It encountered a gene chain collapse event and failed. Checking and confirming the cause, confirmation completed, start adjusting the replacement plan. According to the system, it seems that the replacement of the T/G fusion virus will not be completed for a while. So Luo Guang was not idle at this time, and also absorbed Morpheus's 2 severed hands. The 2 severed hands did not grow self-awareness, and the active gene of the G virus in the T/G fusion virus was not activated, so the 2 severed hands did not grow legs and escape, and they stayed in place and were given away by Luo Guang. Absorbed. In the 23rd attempt, the replacement went very smoothly and was successful. However, the unknown gene part has developed undesirable mutations and is losing the possibility of generating biological current. Morpheus's electric current ability is still very cool. With this ability, he can also be immune to some magic damage, so Luo Guang asked the system to keep this ability. According to the adapter's suggestion, the T/G fusion virus and sleeping tyrant virus are being reanalyzed. The G virus and the genes related to generating electric current have been eliminated, and rematching is in progress. Luo Guang thought of another plan and let the system implement it. Anyway, there is still a lot of T/G fusion virus in the body. You can try it slowly. As long as you can make one, mass production will be very simple in the future. After all, the T/G fusion virus is actually a subspecies developed from the T virus or the ancestor virus. As for the G virus, Luo Guang is not very interested in it, so the T/G fusion virus is very important to Luo Guang. The most important thing is the ability to generate current. In this case, why not just evolve, transform, the ability to produce and control electric current based on the sleeping tyrant virus. The sleeping tyrant virus itself contains parts of the T virus, so the backgrounds of the two sides are not much different. Luo Guang's idea should be feasible. Whether it is feasible can only be known through practice, so the system does not give a definite answer, but this solution is more labor-saving and easier for the system to complete. Just like building a building on flat ground is easier than tearing down the entire middle floor of a built high-rise building and rebuilding a new floor. As for the comparison of the amount of work on both sides, it depends on the actual situation. The ability to generate bioelectric currents and control currents is being added. The system has set up the foundation and is starting to build a house on it. In reality, Luo Guang was dismantling the console and other electronic equipment in the office. Naturally, Luo Guang gained nothing. All the electronic equipment was destroyed by Morpheus. Although he failed to obtain the intelligence information, Luo Guang decided to forgive Morpheus, who had turned to ashes. Added, testing in progress, test successful. There seemed to be something extra in his mind, as if instinctively, Luo Guang stopped what he was doing and snapped his fingers. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Oh, Luo Guang's eyes showed joy. The moment he snapped his fingers, Luo Guang saw the electric sparks that appeared when his fingers rubbed. Then Luo Guang thought for a moment and snapped his fingers again. This time, under Luo Guang's control, no sparks appeared. The practical test was successful. Adjustments will be made according to the situation. Since this is the first version of the virus, does it need to be paid attention to and upgraded in the future? Need Luo Guang nodded in reality. Please name it. Since it was called the Sleeping Tyrant virus before, now that everyone can play with video games, let's call it the Thor virus. Luo Guang is too lazy to name Thor virus, Zeus virus, etc. Simple and easy to understand names are the best. Received, confirmed by naming, included in the database, and determined to be an upgraded version of the Sleeping Tyrant virus. Thinking of something, Luo Guang asked, by the way, apart from this ability related to electricity, has the T/G fusion virus discovered any other abilities? If there was only such an ability, Luo Guang would feel it was a pity. After all, the previously fused viruses all had various abilities. Although Morpheus only showed such an ability, it might be because there was no T/G fusion in her body. The viral genes are just not activated. The system's answer made Luo Guang's eyes light up, and he asked hopefully, what ability is it? The system immediately answered Luo Guang's question, the ability to become a woman. Say it again. Luo Guang was a little unbelievable. The system didn't think Luo Guang didn't hear clearly or understood what he just said, but it still answered, become a woman. I know, Luo Guang interrupted. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. No wonder Morpheus, a man who originally looked more neutral, turned into a woman in appearance and tone after being injected with the T/G fusion virus. Luo Guang thought this was a manifestation of Morpheus's will. After all, Morpheus did not lose her intelligence due to the virus injection. Forget it. Is there anything else? No. The T/G fusion virus was originally developed for the ability to produce and control electricity, so it is normal to have no other abilities. After all, viruses that specialize in one field are easier to develop, and the T-virus-related viruses Luo Guang encountered before. In fact, many of the abilities of viruses come from the plasticity of the T-virus. Since there is no such thing, forget it and start integrating the Thor virus. Luo Guang held his forehead and sighed, saying weakly. Received. After the system checked again to confirm the feasibility of the fusion plan, it started working. Start merging the Thor virus, adaptation completed, fusion completed. Because it was created based on the Sleeping Tyrant virus in Luo Guang's body, the system completed the fusion in an instant without even needing to read the Thor virus. From now on, Luo Guang can finally generate and control electricity as easily as breathing without having to think too much. Moreover, the system has thoughtfully given Luo Guang a lot of knowledge about electricity so that Luo Guang can learn how to use himself. New capabilities. The final inspection is complete. Please confirm the situation with the adapters. Although the fusion of the Thor virus was very smooth, the system still performed its final inspection dutifully and reported it to Luo Guang. The Sleeping Tyrant virus should now be called the Thor virus. I don't know if it has brought some improvement to his attributes, so Luo Guang began to confirm his attributes as usual. Strength, 19, can reach 22 through bioelectric stimulation, but this consumes a large amount of stored bioelectricity. Flexibility, 18 rightward arrow 23, can reach 24 through bioelectric stimulation, but this method will consume a large amount of stored bioelectricity. Stamina, 23. Intelligence, 10. Willpower, 11. Seeing that the flexibility attribute surpassed the strength attribute, Luo Guang felt that his title of One Punch Man should be changed to the Flash. Groaning in his mind, Luo Guang stood up and prepared to go find Gil. The communicator hanging by his ear was damaged in the battle just now, so he couldn't contact him unless he used a mobile phone that was wrapped in hardened armor in advance. Someone else. State of Decay 2 has another big update. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 205. Chapter 200 Coil Gun. After getting the new ability, Luo Guang did not rush to find Jill to report his safety, but began to experiment with his new ability. It was not that Luo Guang was heartless, but he knew that Jill knew that he would go to where Morpheus was, so if he walked around, it would be inconvenient for Jill to meet him. As for why he did not use his mobile phone to contact Jill directly, it was because Luo Guang was worried that he would break his mobile phone when playing with electricity later, so the mobile phone was still safely in the sealed bag made of hardened armor. Anyway, Jill should be worried about him and come to find him, so he would just stay here obediently, Luo Guang thought to himself. Although no one complained about Luo Guang's idea at the scene, it still has to be said that Luo Guang's idea is too straight. It's just that Luo Guang has never been in love before, so he thinks it's okay to let his lover worry about him. First, Luo Guang picked up a piece of iron, threw it up gently, and made a pistol shape with his right hand, and the electric light crackled in front of his index finger. Before the iron block fell to the tip of his index finger, Luo Guang released the electricity condensed in his index finger and hit the iron block. The iron block was instantly knocked away by lightning, and it seemed that it had successfully hit the target, but Luo Guang frowned, which was not what he imagined. As a boy who had seen the super electromagnetic gun, the ammunition that could be taken anywhere was also very powerful and could be comparable to many firearms and weapons, so when Luo Guang got this power of controlling electricity, he immediately thought of this use. Electromagnetic, Luo Guang thought about it and retrieved the 100 Ways to Play with Electricity compiled by the system for him, and looked it up carefully. Luo Guang just used electric energy to knock the iron block away, and did not use the effect of magnetic force. While groping, Luo Guang began a new attempt. Generally, the electromagnetic gun generates a strong magnetic field by two long metal rails that are powered by electricity. At the same time, part of the current in the rails passes through the metal projectile, thereby accelerating the projectile, and finally making the projectile have a very high initial velocity when it leaves the barrel. Although the super electromagnetic gun in the animation does not have a rail, she can generate extremely high voltage to break through the air to form plasma at level 5, replacing the role of the rail. And Luo Guang's first attempt was to try to break through the air. But Luo Guang consumed a lot of energy to increase the voltage, but he did not feel any special reaction in the air, and he failed to succeed in shooting the iron piece again. This is because when the controlled electric energy is disconnected from Luo Guang will lose control of the electric energy, so he cannot control the ions to form the rails needed for the electromagnetic gun. Well, I'm not a superpower after all, Luo Guang thought so, and he was not discouraged. Thinking quickly, Luo Guang thought of another plan. It was very simple. Luo Guang disassembled the ordinary Beretta M92 FS he brought with him, leaving only the metal barrel. Then Luo Guang used the principle of the coil gun, which is different from the electromagnetic gun, to control the current, so that the arc moved quickly from near to far in the barrel from the tail to the head, and got familiar with the feel. Then Luo Guang held the barrel horizontally and stuffed a piece of iron into the barrel from the back. Swoosh! There was only the sound of the iron sheet breaking through the air, and the iron sheet flew out directly, smashing a monitor screen. It seems pretty good. Luo Guang tried it a few more times, and there is still a lot of room for improvement. The first advantage of this thing is concealment. Pistols and other weapons that belong to hot weapons are still very loud after adding silencers, but Luo Guang's coil gun made of gun barrels should actually be a kind of cold weapon, similar to bows and crossbows. The threads inside the gun barrel are still too obvious. If Luo Guang made the metal tube into a private straw, it would not be noticeable. As for the ammunition problem, the electromagnetic railgun can use any conductor as a shell, but the coil gun can only use metals that can be attracted by magnets, iron, nickel, cobalt, as shells, so Luo Guang has to prepare some iron bullets. While thinking, Luo Guang tried a few more times, and finally he had some proficiency, and the dispersion of the things he shot was also within an acceptable range. After reassembling the pistol, Luo Guang tidied up his appearance to make himself look less embarrassed, and then crushed Murphy's bone claw into pieces. "Are you okay?" Not long after Luo Guang crushed the bone claw, Jill suddenly rushed in and asked immediately after seeing Luo Guang. After completing the task of destroying the virus storage, she planned to report to Luo Guang, and if she communicated through the headset, she would not have to worry about the ringing of the phone. As a result, her call did not receive any response from Luo Guang. Worried that Luo Guang might have an accident, Jill immediately went to where Murphy's was. In her opinion, it should be faster to catch an unarmed researcher than herself. Luo Guang did not tell her to complete the task first, either because he needed to keep quiet or because of an accident. And now that there was no response to her call, the possibility of an accident was greater than the former. After all, she was unfamiliar with the place, so Jill had to spend some time to rush to Murphy's office, which was the office of the director of the Atlantic Institute. Luo Guang shook his head and said, "I'm fine, but my earphones were broken in the fight with Morpheus." "Where's Morpheus?" Jill asked nervously, pulling out a strange weapon from his back and looking around alertly. Jill was so worried that she would not be so panicked, because Luo Guang was standing here calmly at this time, which meant that Morpheus had been defeated by Luo Guang. "Dead, what is that thing in your hand?" "It looks like a future weapon," Luo Guang asked when he saw the orange-yellow coil at the front half of the barrel of the weapon. "This is a weapon developed by researchers under Morpheus in a very short time at the Atlantic Research Institute. It is called the Charged Particle Rifle." Jill explained her trophy to Luo Guang. "This weapon looks like a gun. The front half has a coil wrapped around the barrel, and the back half is a square shape, which probably contains something like a battery. There is no mechanical sight or sight. Whether in size or appearance, the weapon in Jill's hand is more like a light machine gun than a rifle. There is a handle on the top of the weapon, and the shooting button is right behind the weapon. It is not in the form of a trigger, but a button. This charged particle rifle fires an accelerated particle that can easily penetrate Morpheus' electric barrier and cause physical damage to the molecular level of the receptor. It can be said to be the nemesis of the mutant Morpheus. However, Luo Guang used the protective ability of the hardened armor to forcibly break through Morpheus' electric barrier protective shield. Speaking of the birth of this charged particle rifle, it was actually not a thing that Morpheus's researchers made to target Morpheus at the beginning. It's just that after reading Pluto's report, the virus researcher found that he didn't have a weapon specifically for the T/G fusion virus. If the T/G fusion virus creature escaped, he would be in danger without the corresponding weapon means. Therefore, this researcher, whose talent for weapon research and development is several levels higher than his talent for virus research, developed this thing. It's a pity that this guy has been killed by Morpheus, otherwise Luo Guang would definitely extend an olive branch to this weapon research and development talent. Jill continued, "I saw the notes next to the weapon, which said that this weapon was designed to deal with the T/G fusion virus mutant, because the virus has the ability to control electric current. I remember Claire once mentioned Dr. William, who injected himself with a biochemical virus, so I took it." The developer's notes were also taken away by Jill, which contained the method and drawings of manufacturing the charged particle rifle, which is also a good anti-biochemical weapon. As for the specific principle of the charged particle rifle, Jill did not understand it, so she did not tell Luo Guang. But then again, that Morpheus should not have the opportunity to inject the virus in front of you, right? Jill was relieved to see that Luo Guang was safe, and said jokingly. Luo Guang pointed to the pile of ashes on the ground and said to Jill, "The injection was successful, but I shot him before he completed the mutation. Maybe the virus was not perfect enough, so after I interrupted his mutation, his body collapsed." Jill did not understand these things, and did not doubt him, and directly believed Luo Guang's words. Luo Guang apologized to Jill in his heart. It was hard to explain that he could not solve the female tyrant alone in the office without a charged particle rifle. "Since we have completed our mission, what should we do next?" The Atlantic Research Institute's data and viruses were burned clean by Jill with a thermite grenade, and Murphy's was dead. The missions on both sides were successfully completed, So Jill, who could not sit still, hurriedly asked about the next mission. Switch the communication channel and ask where the Koken team is. See if they need help. Under Luo Guang's control, Collis has become Luo Guang's tool and a new nail in the African branch of the X organization, so he doesn't want Collis to die in the first mission. Jill nodded and started calling, but at this time, the Koken team was still in the waste treatment facility. This facility was underground and blocked the communication signal with the Atlantic Research Institute. No response. Is it because there are too many metal walls in this institute, or too much interference, so they can't be called? Jill and Luo Guang did not try to contact each other after they separated, so Luo Guang didn't know what was going on. Let's keep calling each other. We'll withdraw first. I don't know what's going on with Hank and the others, Luo Guang said. He had no idea where the Koken team might go. He would never look for them aimlessly in the huge Atlantic Research Institute. Got it, but would it be bad if we just left them here? Unlike Luo Guang, Jill was the kind of person who would not easily give up his teammates. Not knowing what kind of person Collis was, Jill regarded the sixth team as a peace-loving anti-biochemical team. Then go find them. Since Jill said so, he would look for them. Although the other people in the sixth team were basically not really anti-biochemical, but just for money, they were also a rare anti-biochemical force. Speaking of which, Hank mentioned to him that he seemed to have seen a good seedling from the sixth team. Every time he had time to give a lecture, he would see that good seedling coming to listen to the lecture. At this time, the situation of the Koken team was not good, nor was it bad. Because of Pluto's pass, Koken's team suffered a heavy blow and lost about half of its members. However, when faced with other biological and chemical weapons, they were lucky enough not to lose any more members. Captain, what should we do next? The short-haired man, who had survived zombies and various biological and chemical weapons, was hiding in a utility room with Corliss and the Demon. This waste treatment facility is simply a biosphere composed of various biological and chemical weapons. Corliss and the others basically didn't have much time to rest along the way. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Collis, who initially thought of wiping out all the biological and chemical weapons and then returning to lead the effort, had to change his strategy. He put away his killer pride, asked his subordinates about their classroom knowledge, and was forced to change his combat strategy. Koken's team couldn't contact other teams and their own boss, so they had to find their own way to survive. How many bullets are left? The waste treatment facility is quite large, and Koken's team, which was being chased by various biological and chemical weapons, didn't know where they were at this time. However, in order to survive, he decided to find out about the team's situation first. Thinking about how to survive, Corliss smiled bitterly. He really didn't expect that just an anti-biochemical mission would make him change so much. Every time Corliss performs a killer mission, he can get strong backup support from the X organization. He has not experienced this kind of life and death crisis for a long time. Facing various life and death situations this time, he broke the arrogance he had maintained for a long time and made him re-examine himself. After hearing what Collis said, the precision shooter Inchman began to count his magazines. Because the fighting situation was urgent, he had to throw away several empty magazines in order to quickly change ammunition, so he counted quickly. The M14 has 1.5 magazines left, the pistol has 3 full magazines, and the pistol has 1/3 of the magazine left. For throwing objects, there are only 2 smoke bombs left. Collis frowned. The short-haired man's M14 rifle had too few bullets. Facing those enemies with shells, the short-haired man's M14 precision marksman rifle had stronger penetrating power and higher damage than his own AUG assault rifle. There were a lot of guys on the demolition side, so he took a step slower than the short-haired man. After the short-haired man finished speaking, he said, "I still have 3 magazines for the rifle bullets here, and one of them only has half left. The pistol is fine. It has been used, and there are still 4 full magazines. There are only 2 smoke grenades as projectiles, and the last high-explosive round of rifle grenades is left. The rifle grenade was a talisman for Koken's team to break out of the siege without further casualties. The grenade itself was not light individually, so when Collis heard that there was still 1 round left, he actually felt more fortunate. Collis knew his ammunition well, but he had always been fighting for wealth and had not developed the habit of saving bullets, so he only had the last magazine of the AUG assault rifle in his hand. The other assault rifle magazines were thrown away, so even if the demolition team wanted to match Collis with half the molecular ammunition, Collis could not carry it and could only keep a full magazine. There aren't many bullets, so let's stick here first. Corliss comforted his 2 men and said, if the others succeed in their mission, they will naturally come to rescue us. Thank you for subscribing meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 206. Chapter 201 Attacking the Missile Silo. Let's go back to when the Koken team had just dealt with the monster Pluto. At this time, Hank also brought the team except the 3rd and 6th teams to the location on the mountainside, and successfully met with Victor and Caroline, who were responsible for the preliminary reconnaissance. Because they expected to fight in the jungle at night, Hank and his team were wearing a uniform dark green camouflage uniform at this time, not like the USS who wore all black. The uniforms and equipment of the GIMZ troops were all purchased from Susan, basically military supplies, so most people did not propose to buy equipment separately. However, in terms of weapons, because everyone is a mercenary and has their own weapons, Luo Guang did not have a unified regulation and told them that they could be reimbursed. However, this will lead to a problem. Even if they all use assault rifles, they are of different types and bullets are not all universal. For example, the Chen brothers used 5.8mm caliber QBZ-95 automatic rifles, while others used more 5.56mm caliber weapons, and a small number of 7.62mm caliber weapons. The Chen brothers did not have the export-type QBZ-97 automatic rifles, but Susan had no way to buy the QBZ-95 automatic rifles, so in the end the Chen brothers got them through their own connections, and did not ask Luo Guang to reimburse the relevant expenses. The above situation led to a wide variety of ammunition required by the GIMZ troops, which was actually not conducive to logistics management, and it was not convenient to allocate bullets to each other on the battlefield, so Chen Zijian and Chen Zilong needed to carry as many 5.8mm caliber bullets as possible. The GIMZ troops were still in the early stages of development, and there were not many biochemical crisis events. For the time being, there was no definite answer as to which bullet was better for dealing with biochemical weapons. So Luo Guang planned to try a few times before deciding whether to unify the caliber of the troops' bullets. This period of time was also an opportunity for subordinates who used various weapons to try. Death God, the outer situation of the missile silo has been confirmed. We have found the entrance to the missile silo. Tell me the details, Ninja. About 300 meters away from the enemy's field of vision, Hank sent out a secret sentry and asked Victor to tell the information to the others present. Because they were on a mission at this time, the enemies they faced were also humans, so Hank and his team did not call them by their names, but called them by their nicknames. By the way, Chen Zijian and Chen Zilong's titles are Hidden Dragon and Shadow Dragon respectively. They are similar in Chinese, but they will not be confused in English. It's just that it would be longer in English, so other people would only call the Chen brothers by the first character of their names. Victor nodded coolly and said, "The entrance is near the missile silo. From the outside, it looks like a cave entrance. There is a small mercenary camp outside the cave entrance. The overall terrain rises from southeast to northwest. The biggest threats are a machine gun position next to the cave entrance and a light armored vehicle in the camp. The entrance and the machine gun position are both on the higher side, so how to deal with the machine gun position is the top priority. The terrain there is not very good. If we adopt a frontal attack strategy, we will be hit by the enemy's machine gunners, Victor said while drawing the situation there on paper. The threat of heavy machine guns is too great. 1 second of firing is enough for the other party to harvest the lives of everyone present. Sienna Fleur, codenamed Socialite and good at precision shooting, replied, "You can leave that machine gun position to me. I guarantee that whoever touches the machine gun will die. If you shoot from a low position, it will be difficult even if you are a good shooter, right? That machine gun position can cover the entire camp, and the trees around it have been cleared." Hearing Victor's words, Sienna did not refute immediately, but looked at the picture and thought carefully. Caroline added, "Although the 6th team fired the first shot, Morpheus did not dispatch people to go down the mountain to support." Victor took back Caroline's words and continued, "But I saw that the commander of those mercenaries sent some people into the cave after receiving a certain order, so I think the missile silo and the Atlantic Research Institute should be connected." Carlos looked between Victor and Caroline, and felt that the relationship between the two seemed to be much closer, and they had a tacit understanding. The relationship between Victor and Caroline has indeed become very good, but there is no love between the two of them. They regard each other as a respectable rival. The two strong-willed people have won and lost in many one-on-one battles, and they feel that they can't get to know each other without fighting. Therefore, after the two of them train within the team, they always look for each other to compete as dessert after dinner. Over time, the relationship between the two naturally becomes much better. Sienna compared the map and asked, "How long is the open space between the woods and the camp?" "About 10 meters, and the distance to the machine gun position is about 64 meters, with a slope of 13 to 35 degrees. Sienna is Caroline's teammate, so Caroline knows why she asked this data. Sienna nodded, gestured, and said, "In this case, I am still quite confident that I can solve the machine gun position. Although the machine gunner shoots from high to low, the overall slope is within the acceptable range and has little impact on my shooting of the enemy machine gunner. Of course, I still need to actually see the scene to give the most certain answer." This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The captain of the Wolf team, Wolf Mother Karena Lespreau, listened to the discussion of others and interrupted, "Death, let our team be responsible for the roundabout raid." Kalina is a retired member of the Gallic Special Forces. After her experience with the USS Army affiliated to Umbrella, she distrusted the Death Squadron and other squads other than her own. Especially the Echo Squad, who were their enemies in Raccoon City. Although the two sides ended up in a draw, there were no casualties. Being so considerate, she didn't think the other side would definitely shake hands with her and make peace. Except for Victor and Caroline, there is no communication between the Wolves and the Echo team outside of work. So these days, the two sides have not quarreled and focused on the task. In her opinion, this is a good result. Looking at the snipers of the Echo team, Kalina recalled his former member of the Wolves, Vladimir Bodrovsky, who was also qualified for the sniper position. It's a pity that that guy turned out to be a monitor installed by Umbrella Company in his team, so for the safety of herself and others, the Wolf Mother had to take Vladimir and another team member named Kristen Yamaha get rid of it. Do you specifically mean a feint attack or a sneak attack? Hank has heard and seen that the Wolf team led by Wolf Mother uses a fighting method called Wolf Pack. In the simplest summary, this fighting method is to act like a wolf pack. Surprise attack. On the paper drawn by Victor, Kalina pointed to a side position of the enemy camp, circled around and said, "Launching a sneak attack from this position is the fastest way to take down the machine gun position, and it also twists. This eliminates the disadvantage of being low and attacking high, allowing us to attack the enemy in the middle camp from the front and back. Karena's words were a subtle expression that she didn't believe in Sienna's shooting skills. Sienna is also a human spirit, so she naturally understood the meaning behind Kalina's words, but she did not jump up as if someone stepped on her tail, and shrugged at her teammates. We just took a look at the environment over there from a distance. If the enemy is prepared, there is a high possibility of mines there, and our team is not large. As the entrance is the most important place, the enemy may cooperate inside the entrance. The enemy counterattacked us. At the same time, Victor of the Wolves was the first to say that his captain's plan might not work. Kalina also knew what Victor was like, so he did not become angry and said calmly, "I know, but our blasters may have a way to blast a way out for us and eliminate possible landmines. As for being outflanked by the enemy, I think with the strength of our team and other teams, all the enemies in the camp will be killed first, and we only need to control the machine gun position." The demolitionist of the wolves is Fat Man Hector Cives. Hearing what the wolf mother said, he thought for a while and then said, "It is true that I can use explosives to detonate the underground mines and open a way, but this after all, it's not a safe method. Besides, can't we just find a way to throw those explosives on the enemy's head?" Kalina wanted to say something else, but Hank spoke first. Hank naturally understood Kalina's plan and said, "Sorry, Wolf Mother, this mission is still time limited. We should concentrate our efforts, move quickly, and clench our fists with 5 fingers to give the opponent a fatal blow." Hank continued, "I think the camp is not too big, and there shouldn't be too many people guarding it. It would be better for us to launch a direct assault directly, and go directly to the opponent's entry and exit road." "The number of people is about 14. Victor reported an imaginary number. Hank thanked Victor for his addition, and then continued, "Wolf Mom, this is not the past. We need all teams to work together to complete the task, instead of you working alone as a team." After Hank came to the GIMZ unit, he was actually not used to taking so many people on missions. However, as he got along with other people more, he had more aspects to consider, and he naturally got used to it. Carlos saw that the atmosphere was a bit tense, so he made a joke following Hank's words, "We are a righteous party now, we do things openly, there is no need to dodge, and we also have heavy firepower. What if we accidentally get hurt? This is a battlefield. Combat techniques such as stealth operations and sneak attacks are no problem." Carlos actually means that Wolf Mother and the others are doing bad things and pursue secrecy, so they fall into inertia when thinking about problems. But saying this is not conducive to unity, so Carlos said it very cryptically. The Wolf Mother was not an arrogant person. After hearing Hank's words, she lowered her head and started thinking. There was indeed something wrong with the suggestion she just made, but she was considering the possibility that the enemy might blow up the entrance, so she thought quickly occupy the vicinity of the entrance. Finally, the Wolf Mother said, "You are right, but I think if everyone engages in frontal combat, the overall risk will be much greater, and this will give the enemy time to blow up the entrance." Hank nodded. Naturally, he had considered this and had a rudiment of a plan in mind, so he expressed his thoughts and discussed them with others. After the discussion, the captains of each team led their teams to the designated location. The enemies at the entrance camp entered the alert position because of the gunshots outside the Atlantic Research Institute, but the mercenaries who had not waited for the enemy to launch an attack had begun to relax at this time. After all, it was already late. If you are poor, you can intersperse and surround, and if you are rich, you can cover with firepower. This sentence was told to Hank by Luo Guang when Hank and his boss chatted before. For the task of attacking the Atlantic Research Institute this time, Luo Guang also specially prepared a lot of fun things for Hank, such as the RPG-7 rocket launcher and the AGS-30 automatic grenade launcher. Regarding the terrain and other conditions of the Atlantic Research Institute, Luo Guang did not ask in detail to avoid Ada's speculation and suspicion, otherwise the other party would easily associate himself with the Atlantic Research Institute after knowing that someone attacked it. Since Luo Guang failed to provide more intelligence support to Hank and his team, he had to provide Hank with sufficient firepower support. So in order to crack the shell of the Atlantic Research Institute as Luo Guang expected, Luo Guang purchased these rocket launchers and automatic grenade launchers, so that even if Hank and his team face biological weapons such as Tyrant, they will have the strength to fight. Although the attack range of these things is closer than that of real rocket launchers and howitzers, it is enough for Hank and his team. One of the Morpheus mercenaries who had just relaxed took a nap, and suddenly something flew past his neck quickly. Then soon there was a loud explosion behind him, and the light armored vehicle was directly destroyed. The mercenary, whose consciousness became blurred, did not look back, but touched his neck with a puzzled look. His hands were full of blood, and the bleeding continued. That was the result of the tail of the rocket, which coincidentally and accurately cut the carotid artery of this poor guy directly. Hector is an elite who is proficient in blasting. Under his calibration and adjustment, he and another blaster Marissa Chipmunk Rosen are each operating two AGS-30 automatic grenade launchers to fire. This AGS-30 automatic grenade launcher is a development and improvement of the AGS-17 automatic grenade launcher. It was officially put into production in 1999. It is basically only equipped in some special forces of the Russian Army and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It is a high-end equipment in service that Susan spent a lot of money to buy from the oligarchs of the Russian Bear Country. Other weapons can be discarded, but Luo Guang strongly asked his men to bring back these two automatic grenade launchers intact. The reason why Luo Guang did not buy the much cheaper AGS-17 automatic grenade launcher is that the weight of the AGS-30 is almost half of the former. Facing the GIMZ troops without vehicle support, this weight can be carried and operated by one soldier. Of course, in actual use, it is also carried by a group. Hector, who usually only plays with explosive packs, put his hands on the grip of the automatic grenade launcher, with an excited smile on his face, thinking that his decision to come to this unit was correct. Anyway, this thing can't be used in the room, so Hector, who has already adjusted the angle, did not save ammunition and pressed the launch button without reservation. Grenades came out in droves, and Hector used AGS-30 to directly rain grenades on the enemy, making the enemy cry for his parents. Marissa, who was operating the AGS-30, did not press the trigger, but adjusted the AGS-30 to single-shot mode, firing slowly, focusing on the machine gun position, and then she began to cover her teammates to approach the mercenary camp. Finally, under Hank's command, the GIMZ troops occupied the camp in front of the missile silo entrance without any casualties. Meow, part of this chapter is just artistic expression. Unknowingly, I have written 200 chapters. Thank you for your support. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 207. Chapter 202 Tripartite Cooperation. It was Hank who overestimated the enemy's resistance or command ability. I didn't expect that the enemy didn't install explosive devices. Hank felt lucky. Since joining the GIMZ force, he felt that his luck had gotten better. Unexpectedly, I had so many people and discussed so much, but in the end the enemy collapsed at the first touch, and was eliminated by Hank and the others without even firing a shot. And the enemy didn't even fire a few shots. Lone Wolf nodded and responded casually. After occupying the camp, there are still 2.5 hours before the missile launch time set by Morpheus. There is plenty of time. If there are no accidents, the two teams sent by Hank should be able to successfully complete the mission. Thinking of this, Hank continued to make arrangements for Carlos' team to defend the entrance of the silo with two AGS-30 automatic grenade launchers. Hank then tried to contact Luo Guang to report the progress of the mission, but like Jill, he was unable to contact Luo Guang. What to do? Hank contacted Luo Guang at this time not just to report the progress of the mission, but to ask Luo Guang to use the communication equipment of the Atlantic Research Institute to contact the leaders of the two countries threatened by Morpheus. Otherwise, Hank was worried that the leaders of the two countries would take a sudden turn and level the island he was on with missiles. "What's wrong?" After arranging his men to defend, Carlos asked when he saw Hank's serious expression on his face. The Wolves and the Echo team had already entered the missile well to perform their mission, so it was difficult for Hank to ask there, so he looked at Carlos and told him his question. Although Carlos seemed carefree, Hank felt that Carlos was very flexible in his thinking and a quick-witted person. "This is not simple. Didn't we tie up two people?" Carlos said, "No, we should have rescued two agents. Now the book fans are guarding the agents from the Lighthouse country and the Eastern country, so let us pay attention to safety and they will not come to support us." "You mean to ask them to help us communicate with people in our own country?" Hank was unsure. Carlos replied, "Yes, since there are agents from both countries here, we have a bridge of communication, of course we must use it." After thinking for a while, Hank nodded and agreed to Carlos' plan, and took out the communicator from the pocket behind his back. Bruce and Fang Ling didn't wander around after arriving on this large cargo ship. The Black Cat sheriff didn't seem to be worried about the secrets on the ship being discovered by him, so they felt that they wouldn't gain anything here. It's better to chat with the people from G.I.M.Z's their team to get information. On the other hand, the GIMZ troops did not confiscate the satellite phones they used to communicate with their superiors, so they reciprocated the favor without doing anything extra. Bruce told his superiors about the situation. The superiors were very surprised to know that the GIMZ troops were involved in this incident. The Special Operations Command also immediately asked Bruce to investigate the situation of the GIMZ troops and determine their purpose of intervening in the matter. Bruce was also sincere. After receiving the order from his superiors, he immediately launched an investigation. The investigation method was very simple and fair. He asked Wang Shuhong directly. It's not like what GIMZ troops did was a bad thing. Although it has a somewhat public welfare nature, the GIMZ force still needs to make money in order to better conduct anti-biochemical operations, so doing good deeds without leaving a name is not the style of the GIMZ force. Therefore, when Wang Shuhong heard Bruce's question, he didn't hide it and told Bruce directly. Since Bruce asked this question, there was no need for Fang Ling to ask again, but the problem was how the two of them could verify that Wang Shuhong's words were true. "In that case, why don't you let us help you carry out the mission? Our purpose is also to prevent Morpheus from launching missiles and prevent the occurrence of a biological crisis." Keith and Tyrone, who were drinking orange juice drinks, also pricked up their ears and approached Bruce to start gossiping. "You see, I didn't join the mission. I'm responsible for looking after the house here." Wang Shuhong knew that this reply would not satisfy the other party, so he continued, "The two of you are not in the same camp, so you are weak. Even if you act together with us, what can you do? Help you deal with the biological monsters," Bruce said straightforwardly. Wang Shuhong shook his head and said, "We are a force that specializes in dealing with biohazards." "Bruce, are you from the Red Claws?" No, what Wang Shuhong said was actually very straightforward. Bruce naturally understood and replied a little unwillingly. Although he was also a member of the Special Operations Command's anti-umbrella team, that team had not been established for long, and the instructor responsible for anti-biochemical teaching had just taken office not long ago, so he did not include the members of his unit. Talk things out. This is especially true for Fang Ling. Her organization has not even established a professional anti-biochemical force, so her superiors deliberately asked Fang Ling to perform tasks with the GIMZ unit and secretly learn some anti-biochemical skills. So it's hard to say how much help you two can bring by joining the mission, but it will easily disrupt our battle arrangements. After all, you are not familiar with our fighting style, Wang Shuhong replied. Okay, you guys have the final say since the other party said so. Bruce himself had nothing to say, so he could only give up. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The topic just ended, as if it had found the right time. Wang Shuhong's communicator suddenly rang. It was Hank's call. Wang Shuhong walked to the side and picked up the communicator. This is Shumi. Wang Shuhong gave his name to let the other party confirm that he had not found the wrong person. This is Death God, are those two agents with you? Hank asked, and got a positive answer from Wang Shuhong. Put the communicator on hands-free, I have something to talk to them. Let the other two go first. Unable to contact his boss, the matter was also very urgent, so Hank could only do it according to Luo Guang's previous instructions to ensure that the general direction was correct. Luo Guang still gave this power to Hank. After all, his boss often disappeared and became a hands-off boss, so he had to delegate power to the talents below, and Hank was one of the talents he entrusted with important tasks. Although Keshao and Tyrone were curious about what they were going to talk about, they still walked out obediently. Since it was not appropriate to tell them, it would be better for them not to ask too much. Keshao did not want to hear the sheriff say to him, "You know too much." Hank told Bruce and Fang Ling that they had already started attacking the missile silo, and then asked them to contact their superiors to see how to end the incident. If only the GIMZ troops knew about this, they could just detonate the Atlantic Institute's self-destruct system directly, but now that two major countries were involved, the GIMZ troops naturally had to give them face and discuss how to deal with it. Of course, GIMZ will destroy all the virus samples and research materials to ensure that they will not be obtained by those with ulterior motives. Got it, I'll let them talk to you. Wang Shuhong walked towards Bruce and Fang Ling with the communicator. Death God. Are you from Umbrella? Bruce had heard that there was a man named Death God in Umbrella's USS unit. Hank hesitated for a while before saying, "It used to be, but not now." The other party did not elaborate, and Bruce did not ask more questions. There were countless researchers and soldiers who defected from Umbrella, including those who joined the Lighthouse Virus Research Institute, so this matter was not strange. Are you so confident that you can solve this incident? You don't have many people, but you need to solve the problems in two places at the same time. Fang Ling didn't know the other party's configuration, but she didn't think that the GIMZ unit could capture the Atlantic Research Institute and the missile silo with such a small number of people. Hank also knew this. In fact, if there were no missiles, according to the original plan, their target would only be the Atlantic Research Institute. That is, his boss came, otherwise Hank would have been forced to split his troops into two groups. He couldn't tell the reason, and there was no definite evidence. It was just Hank's intuition. He trusted his boss's fighting ability so much. In Hank's opinion, if the location of the crazy Morpheus can be determined, half an hour will be enough for the boss to kill through the entire Atlantic Research Institute and capture Morpheus. Hank replied, "We are confident that we can complete the task, and to be honest, the situation here is nothing compared to Raccoon City." Raccoon City. Fang Ling had heard about that incident, but because the Lighthouse government blocked most of the information, the Eastern country could only obtain the situation of the Raccoon City incident from other places, which was basically second-hand information. Bruce knew the situation in Raccoon City at that time and said, "Okay, since you are confident, let's wait and see. You specially came to us, not just to let us know your ability, right?" "Why not? We are anti-biochemical mercenaries. Isn't it normal to fight for yourself?" After getting along with Luo Guang for a long time, Hank can now say such words. Ahem. Bruce choked on the water when he heard Hank's words and coughed a few times. The person of the god of death did not match the information he saw in the intelligence. At least one thing, those missiles still need to be dealt with by your two countries. Of course, we will destroy the viruses in the missiles together. Although trading with only one of the countries can get more benefits, neither Luo Guang nor Hank wants to be involved in the vortex of the two countries' hegemony. Bruce and Fang Ling looked at each other, as if they wanted to confirm the intentions of the government behind the other party from each other's eyes. However, neither Bruce nor Fang Ling had the authority to agree to anything, so they took out their respective communicators and acted as microphones, and the superiors who had been paying attention to the development of the situation soon sent a reply. Fang Ling took a look and said, "The superiors have already started negotiations with the lighthouse country to discuss how to solve this matter. Although a result has not been discussed yet, the two countries have reached a consensus, that is, both sides will send people over at the same time to form a joint investigation team. Then before the troops of the two countries come to take over, the GIMZ troops will temporarily take charge of the Atlantic Research Institute and the missile silo." The fact that both sides reached a consensus on this issue so quickly and agreed to let the GIMZ force be responsible for supervision was actually very simple, because both sides had placed their own undercover agents in GIMZ, the mercenary group that first proposed anti-biological chemicals. "There's no problem with this." Hank didn't care about this and said, "But if we stay here all the time, the expenses will be a bit high. Our boss may use this matter later." Hank was a bit speechless after what he said. He couldn't say that although his boss was anti-biochemical, he also loved money. This would sound like he was speaking ill of his boss. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Fang Ling reacted very quickly and immediately understood that the GIMZ force was a mercenary force after all. Although it was not the boss of the GIMZ unit who said it himself, Fang Ling still reported the matter, and her superiors were also wealthy, so Fang Ling directly conveyed, "Money is not an issue, we will pay you a reasonable remuneration." In the opinion of Fang Ling's superiors, the cost of his country's action may be greater than the entire net worth of GIMZ troops, so giving GIMZ troops some compensation is actually a good deal. However, we hope that Fang Ling can join your custody as an investigator since he is giving money, he is a customer, so Fang Ling's leader immediately put forward his own conditions. When Bruce saw what the other party said, he felt anxious and quickly reported the matter to his superiors. The leader of the anti-umbrella team had been waiting for Bruce's message in the communication center, so he naturally responded to Bruce immediately. Then Bruce quickly said, "We are also willing to sponsor a fund for your army, but I need to be a supervisor to supervise your task of destroying the virus." This time Morpheus threatened missiles with T-virus. This virus is available in the Virology Research Institute of the Lighthouse country, so the superiors did not need Bruce to steal the biochemical virus. Of course, even if Bruce receives such a task, he will obey it and not actually carry it out. Hank did not refuse Bruce and Fang Ling's request. From the moment he asked Wang Shuhong to place the communicator in front of Bruce and Fang Ling, he had guessed that the other party would definitely make such a request. "Okay, but there is one thing I need to mention. That is that the Institute of the Atlantic lost contact due to signal problems, so the situation there may be more troublesome." "Trouble? Are you referring to the capture of Morpheus?" "No, we broke into the missile silo, and Morpheus did not launch missiles in advance, or protest to your government. I think my boss has completed the task," Hank said, based on the current situation. "What's the trouble?" Fang Ling heard that the other party only mentioned the boss of GIMZ, thinking that the man wearing the black cat sergeant should be the boss of GIMZ. "We only sent a small team to the Institute of Atlantic Research, so the cleanup was not that clean. If you go there, you need to be prepared. I will send 2 people here to assist you." Hank planned to kill the Chen brothers. Chen Zichen and Lone Wolf were sent out. Chen Zichen was a person sent by Dongfang Kingdom who could assist Fang Ling, while Lone Wolf was sent by Hank to assist Bruce in order to balance the other party's personnel. Receive. The basic matters were settled, and after Hank explained some things to Wang Shuhong, he hung up the communication. "I read other people's books today and felt the difference in writing style.